The storm hit the Colorado mountains like the wrath of God himself, and Dr. Maya Blackwood was driving straight into its teeth. Lightning split the sky in jagged white scars as rain hammered her windshield with the fury of 1,000 angry spirits. The wipers worked frantically but uselessly against the torrent, and Maya hunched forward over the steering wheel, her knuckles white as she navigated the treacherous mountain pass. She should have waited until morning. Any sane person would have waited until morning. But Gertie Morrison's prize mare was in labor with complications, and Maya had never been accused of being entirely sane when it came to saving animals. Her cell phone had died 20 minutes ago, somewhere between the last cell tower and nowhere, leaving her with only the truck's headlights to cut through the darkness. The radio crackled with static and emergency weather warnings that came too late to matter. This wasn't just a spring storm, this was nature reminding the world who was really in charge. Maya downshifted as the road curved sharply around the mountain face, her truck's engine growling against the steep grade. She'd made this drive 1,000 times in the past 5 years since she'd taken over the veterinary practice in Cedar Ridge, but never in weather like this. Never with wind that threatened to push her truck right off the cliff and into the valley below. Another flash of lightning turned night into day for a split second, and that's when she saw him. A figure sprawled across the yellow line in the middle of the road, motionless as death itself. Jesus Christ! Maya slammed on the brakes, her truck sliding sideways on the rain-slick asphalt before coming to a shuddering stop just yards from the body. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she threw the gear into park and grabbed her emergency flashlight from the glove compartment. The smart thing, the safe thing, would be to call for help. But her phone was dead, and the nearest house was 15 miles back down the mountain. The figure in the road hadn't moved, not even when her headlights had blazed across him. Maya pushed open her door and was immediately soaked to the skin by the driving rain. The cold bit through her veterinary jacket like it was made of tissue paper, and the wind nearly knocked her off her feet as she stumbled toward the prone figure. It was a man, she realized as she got closer, sprawled on his stomach with one arm trapped beneath his body and the other flung out at an unnatural angle. Dark hair plastered to his skull, clothes torn and bloody. And blood, God, there was so much blood pooling beneath him, washing away as fast as it flowed in the relentless rain. Maya dropped to her knees beside him, her flashlight beam revealing the source of the bleeding. 3 parallel gashes ran from his left shoulder blade down to his ribs, deep enough that she could see the white gleam of bone beneath the torn flesh. They looked like claw marks, but what animal could have done this? Mountain lions didn't usually attack humans, and besides, these gouges were too large, too deep. Too perfectly spaced. She pressed her fingers to his throat, searching for a pulse. His skin was burning hot despite the cold rain, fever radiating from him like heat from a furnace. But there, weak and thready but steady, she felt the flutter of life beneath her fingertips. "Hey," she called, leaning close to his ear. "Can you hear me?" A low sound escaped his throat, something between a moan and a growl. His lips moved, shaping words she couldn't understand. The language sounded old somehow, primal and rough around the edges like stones worn smooth by centuries of wind and water. Maya made her decision in that instant, the same way she always did, with her heart instead of her head. She couldn't leave him here to die, not when she had the skills and equipment to help. Getting him into her truck would be hell, but she'd managed to load injured livestock before. How different could this be? Famous last words, she thought grimly as she slipped her arms under his shoulders and heaved. He was heavier than he looked, solid muscle beneath the torn clothes, but somehow she managed to half-drag, half-carry him to her truck. He mumbled incoherently the entire time, that strange, guttural language punctuated by what sounded almost like whimpers of pain. By the time she got him loaded into the passenger seat, they were both covered in his blood and her muscles screamed in protest. The 40-minute drive to Cedar Ridge Regional Hospital felt like 40 hours. Maya kept one eye on the road and one on her passenger, who drifted in and out of consciousness with alarming frequency. When he was awake, he muttered in that foreign tongue, his fever-bright eyes darting around the truck's interior like a wild animal looking for escape routes. When he was unconscious, he was so still that Maya had to keep checking to make sure he was still breathing. She'd saved dozens of animals over the years, pulled them back from the brink of death with nothing but skill and stubborn determination. But this felt different somehow. More important. Like the storm had brought him to her for a reason she couldn't yet understand. The emergency room at Cedar Ridge Regional was a blur of fluorescent lights and urgent voices. Maya stayed by his side as they wheeled him into Trauma Bay 2, her hands still sticky with his blood. The attending physician, Dr. Sarah Chen, was someone Maya knew from the monthly medical community dinners, and she took Maya's abbreviated explanation of finding him on the road without too many questions. Animal attack? Dr. Chen asked, examining the claw marks with professional detachment. Must have been, Maya said, though something about that explanation didn't sit right with her. Maybe a bear. They'd been spotted in the area. Dr. Chen made a noncommittal sound and continued her examination. The man's fever had spiked to 104 degrees, and his blood pressure was dangerously low. They started him on 4 fluids and antibiotics, cleaned and sutured the worst of the wounds, and ran a battery of tests looking for signs of infection or internal bleeding. Through it all, Maya found herself studying his face. He was probably in his early 30s, with strong, angular features that spoke of good genetics and hard living. Even unconscious and pale from blood loss, there was something compelling about him. Something that made her think of moonlight and shadows and secrets whispered in the dark. Which was ridiculous. She was a veterinarian, not a romance novelist. She dealt in facts and science, not flights of fancy. But when his eyes suddenly snapped open and locked onto hers with laser intensity, Maya felt something shift deep in her chest, like tectonic plates realigning. Those eyes. They were the color of amber honey shot through with flecks of gold, wild and feral and completely, utterly human. And they were staring at her like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to the world. His hands shot out with surprising speed and strength, wrapping around her wrist like a manacle. His grip was hot as a brand and strong enough to bruise, and Maya should have been afraid. Should have called for security, should have pulled away. Instead, she found herself leaning closer. "Don't let them find me," he whispered, his voice rough as gravel and desperate as a prayer. The words were heavily accented but perfectly clear, nothing like the strange language he'd been speaking in the truck. "Who?" Maya asked, her own voice barely above a whisper. "Who's looking for you?" His eyes searched her face like he was memorizing every detail, and for a moment Maya felt exposed, seen in a way that made her pulse skip and stutter. Then his eyes rolled back and he was unconscious again, his hand falling away from her wrist to lie limp against the white hospital sheets. Dr. Chen bustled back into the room with a clipboard and a frown. "No identification," she announced. "No wallet, no driver's license, nothing. We've checked with the sheriff's department, no missing persons reports matching his description." Maya rubbed her wrist where his fingers had gripped her, surprised to find she could still feel the phantom heat of his touch. "What's his condition?" "Stable, for now. The wounds are deep but clean, they'll heal with time and proper care. The fever's our biggest concern. His white count is elevated, suggesting infection, but he's responding to the antibiotics." Dr. Chen consulted her notes. "We'll need to keep him for observation, at least 48 hours. Maybe longer if complications develop." "And after that?" Dr. Chen shrugged. "Social services, I suppose. Unless someone comes forward to claim him or he remembers who he is." Maya stared down at the mystery man, this stranger who had literally fallen into her path on the worst night of the year. There was something about his face that tugged at her memory, like a song she'd heard once in a dream. Something that made her want to smooth the dark hair back from his forehead and promise him that everything would be all right. Which was insane. She didn't know this man from Adam. He could be anyone, a criminal, a drifter, someone running from the law. She had no business getting involved beyond what she'd already done. But when she left the hospital 2 hours later, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. She drove home through the dying storm, her truck's heater finally managing to chase away the bone-deep chill. The rain had gentled to a steady patter against the windshield, and the worst of the wind had moved on to terrorize some other mountain community. By the time she pulled into her driveway, the clouds were starting to break apart, revealing patches of star-studded sky. Maya's house sat on 20 acres of pine and aspen forest, far enough from town to give her privacy but close enough that she didn't feel completely isolated. She'd bought the place 3 years ago with the life insurance money from her parents' deaths, and every day she was grateful for the peace and quiet it provided. After growing up in Chicago and spending 4 years in veterinary school at Colorado State, the silence of the mountains had been like medicine for her soul. Tonight, though, the silence felt different. Expectant, somehow, like the forest was holding its breath. Maya shook off the fanciful thought and trudged up her front steps, bone-tired and emotionally drained. Her golden retriever, Bear, met her at the door with enthusiastic tail wagging and concerned whines. He'd obviously been worried about her late-night departure, and Maya took a moment to scratch behind his ears and assure him that she was home safe. "Just me, boy," she murmured, though Bear continued to sniff the air around her with unusual intensity. Probably smelling the blood and antiseptic from the hospital. After a hot shower and 2 cups of coffee, Maya finally began to feel human again. She sat at her kitchen table with Bear's head resting on her feet, staring out the window at the forest beyond her backyard. The storm had stripped the last of the autumn leaves from the aspens, leaving them bare and skeletal against the night sky. Somewhere out there, a pack of coyotes began to howl, their voices rising and falling in an ancient chorus that made the hair on Maya's arms stand up. Bear lifted his head from her feet and whined softly, his ears pricked forward toward the sound. "It's just coyotes," Maya told him, but even as she said it, she knew these weren't coyotes. The howls were too deep, too resonant. Too close to human in their pain and longing. She thought of the mystery man lying unconscious in his hospital bed, and for no reason she could name, she shivered. The next morning dawned clear and cold, the kind of autumn day that made Maya grateful to live in Colorado. She made her rounds to 3 different ranches, treating everything from a colicky horse to a barn cat with an infected paw. The mundane routine of veterinary work helped ground her after the strangeness of the previous night, reminding her that she was a woman of science and logic, not given to flights of supernatural fancy. But when she stopped by the hospital to check on the mystery man during her lunch break, Maya found herself hoping he was awake. She wanted to see those amber eyes again, to assure herself that the intensity she'd imagined there had been nothing more than fever and delirium. Dr. Chen met her at the nurse's station with a puzzled frown. "I was hoping you'd come by," she said. "We may have a problem." Maya's stomach dropped. "Is he worse?" "Actually, he's better. Much better. That's the problem." Dr. Chen led her toward the patient room, lowering her voice. "His fever broke around midnight, and when I checked on him this morning, his wounds had already begun to close. Maya, I've never seen healing like this. It's almost unnatural." They stopped outside room 237, and through the partially open door, Maya could see him sitting up in bed, staring out the window with those remarkable amber eyes. He'd been cleaned up since last night, his dark hair was damp from a shower, and someone had found him a hospital gown that actually fit his broad shoulders. He looked alert and healthy, nothing like the dying man she'd pulled off the mountain road. "Has he said anything?" Maya asked. "That's the other strange thing. He claims he doesn't remember anything before waking up here. Not his name, not where he comes from, not how he was injured. Complete amnesia." Maya studied the man through the gap in the door. Amnesia was convenient, wasn't it? Especially for someone who'd been desperate not to be found. "I'd like to talk to him," she said. Dr. Chen nodded. "I was hoping you would. Maybe seeing the person who saved his life will trigger something." Maya knocked softly on the door frame and stepped into the room. The man turned toward her, and the impact of those amber eyes was just as powerful in daylight as it had been in the fluorescent glare of the emergency room. "Maybe more so." "You're the one who found me," he said, and his voice was different now, still rough around the edges but no longer slurred with fever and pain. The accent was there but subtle, adding an exotic melody to his words. "Maya Blackwood," she said, extending her hand. "I'm a veterinarian here in Cedar Ridge." He took her hand in both of his, and Maya felt that same shock of heat she'd experienced the night before. His hands were large and calloused, speaking of hard physical labor, and when his thumb brushed across her knuckles, she had to resist the urge to shiver. "I wish I could tell you my name," he said, holding her hand a moment longer than strictly necessary. "I wish I could tell you anything." Maya studied his face, looking for signs of deception. She'd learned to read animals by necessity, their body language, their tells, their moods. But this man was harder to read than any creature she'd ever encountered. "The doctor says you don't remember how you were injured." Something flickered behind his eyes, too quick to interpret. "No. Nothing before waking up here and seeing your face. You spoke to me last night. You asked me not to let them find you. Do you remember that?" He went very still, and Maya felt the temperature in the room seem to drop by several degrees. "I said that? You seemed frightened. Desperate." "I don't remember," he said, but his hands had tightened on hers, and she could feel the tension thrumming through his body like a live wire. Maya pulled her hands free and took a step back. "The police will want to question you once you're released. About how you ended up on that road, about those injuries. And if I can't tell them anything? Then they'll keep investigating until they find answers." The man, she really needed to call him something, leaned back against his pillows and closed his eyes. When he opened them again, the vulnerability there made Maya's chest ache. "I know you have no reason to trust me," he said quietly. "But I feel like you saved more than my life last night. I can't explain it, but when I look at you, it's like coming home after being lost for a very long time." Maya's breath caught in her throat. She was 31 years old, a successful veterinarian with a good life and a sensible head on her shoulders. She didn't believe in love at first sight or fairy tale romance or mysterious strangers who made her pulse race with nothing more than a look. But when he smiled at her, a slow, careful smile that transformed his entire face, she felt something crack open inside her chest. Something dangerous and wonderful and completely terrifying. "The social worker will be here tomorrow," she heard herself saying. "If you're discharged and you have nowhere to go." "Maya." Dr. Chen appeared in the doorway, saving her from finishing that incredibly foolish sentence. "Could I speak with you for a moment?" Maya followed Dr. Chen into the hallway, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. What had she been about to do? Invite a complete stranger, an injured, amnesiac stranger, home with her? "I can see the way you're looking at him," Dr. Chen said gently. "And I understand the impulse to help. But Maya, we don't know anything about this man. He could be dangerous." "I know that," Maya said, but even as the words left her mouth, she knew she didn't really believe them. "Dangerous? Yes, probably. But not to her." She couldn't explain how she knew that, but she did. "Just, be careful," Dr. Chen said. "Promise me that." Maya promised, but as she drove home that evening, she found herself making mental preparations. The guest bedroom needed fresh sheets. She had enough food in the freezer for 2 people. Bear would need time to adjust to having a stranger in the house. She was going to do it. She was going to bring him home. The decision should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. That night, as Maya settled into bed, she left her bedroom window cracked open despite the October chill. She liked to fall asleep to the sounds of the forest, the whisper of wind through the pines, the distant call of an owl, the scurrying of small creatures in the underbrush. Tonight, though, the forest was quiet. Too quiet. Maya drifted off to sleep with the feeling that something was watching her house from the shadows between the trees. Something with amber eyes and secrets it wasn't ready to share. But when she woke the next morning to sunlight streaming through her windows and Bear's wet nose nudging her face, she told herself it had only been a dream. She couldn't have known that in the deepest part of the forest, something had indeed been watching. Something that had caught the scent of the man she'd brought home on her clothes and in her hair. Something that was already making plans. If you're enjoying this channel, don't forget to like the video, drop a comment to share your thoughts, and hit the subscribe button. Also, turn on the notification bell so you'll be updated whenever more stories like this drop. Chapter 2. The sanctuary Kai had spoken of lay hidden in a valley so remote that no human maps showed its existence. Maya had dozed fitfully during the long ride through increasingly wild terrain, her arms wrapped around Kai's powerful wolf form as he navigated paths that seemed to exist more in memory than reality. When she finally opened her eyes, the sun was setting behind jagged mountain peaks, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. Kai slowed to a stop at the edge of a cliff that overlooked the most beautiful place Maya had ever seen. The valley below was lush and green, crossed by a silver ribbon of river that caught the last light of day. Ancient trees rose like cathedral spires along the water's edge, and she could make out structures nestled among them, buildings that seemed to grow from the landscape itself rather than being imposed upon it. "Welcome to Haven," Kai said, having shifted back to human form while she was distracted by the view. His voice carried a mixture of relief and apprehension that made Maya look at him more closely. "You don't seem entirely happy to be here," she observed. "It's complicated." Kai ran a hand through his dark hair, wincing as the movement pulled at his still healing wounds. Haven exists outside the normal power structures of the supernatural world. No pack law, no coven hierarchy, no ancient councils making decisions. It's freedom, but it's also chaos. Maya studied his profile in the fading light, noting the tension in his jaw and the way his eyes kept scanning the valley below as if searching for threats. "What aren't you telling me?" "The woman who runs this place, we have history." The simple statement hit Maya like a physical blow, and she was surprised by the intensity of jealousy that flared in her chest. The mate bond, she realized. It was making her possessive in ways that should have alarmed her but somehow felt perfectly natural. "What kind of history?" she asked, proud that her voice remained steady. "The kind that ended badly." Kai turned to face her fully, his storm-gray eyes serious. "Sarah Nightshade and I were involved years ago. Before I became alpha, before I understood what it meant to wait for a true mate. And now? Now she's the most powerful supernatural being in a 300-mile radius, and I'm about to ask her for a favor that will put both of us in her debt." Kai's smile was rueful. "This should be interesting." Before Maya could respond, the air around them shimmered like heat waves rising from summer pavement. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in an instant, and Maya felt her newly awakened senses go haywire as something vast and ancient focused its attention on them. "Kai Blackwood." The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, rich and melodious with an undertone that raised goosebumps along Maya's arms. How unexpected. A woman materialized out of the twilight shadows, and Maya understood immediately why Kai had been reluctant to come here. Sarah Nightshade was stunning in the way that transcended human beauty, tall and willowy, with silver hair that moved like liquid mercury and eyes the color of midnight. She wore flowing robes that seemed to be cut from starlight itself, and power radiated from her in waves that made Maya's teeth ache. "Sarah." Kai's voice was carefully neutral, but Maya could feel the tension radiating from him. "We need sanctuary." "We?" Sarah's midnight eyes fixed on Maya with predatory interest. "And who might this delicious mortal be?" "She's not mortal," Kai said quickly, stepping slightly in front of Maya in a protective gesture that didn't go unnoticed by either woman. "She's my mate." The temperature dropped another 10 degrees. When Sarah spoke again, her voice could have frozen flame. "Your mate? How fascinating." Maya felt something probe at the edges of her mind, a cold, invasive presence that tried to slip past her mental defenses like smoke through a keyhole. Instinctively, she pushed back, and was surprised when the probe recoiled as if burned. Sarah's eyebrows rose in genuine surprise. Well. The little mate has claws." Her tone shifted from predatory to intrigued. "What are you, child?" "I'm still figuring that out," Maya replied honestly. "But I'm not little, and I'm definitely not a child." Sarah laughed, a sound like silver bells mixed with broken glass. "Oh, I like her already. She has spine." The ancient being circled them slowly, studying Maya with the intensity of a collector examining a rare gem. "Tell me, Kai, what brings the great Alpha crawling to my door? Last I heard, you had your precious pack to protect you." My pack has been compromised, Kai said through gritted teeth. Someone betrayed us to the hunters. Maya and I need somewhere safe while we figure out who and why. The hunters, you say? Sarah's expression darkened, and Maya felt the temperature plummet even further. Those tedious little insects are becoming increasingly bold. Just last month, they had the audacity to attack one of my residents. I'm afraid I had to make an example of them. Something in her tone made Maya's blood run cold. She was beginning to understand that while Sarah might offer them sanctuary, they would be trading one danger for another. Will you help us? Kai asked. Oh, darling, of course I will. But you know there's always a price. Sarah's smile was sharp enough to cut diamonds. The question is, what are you willing to pay? Name it, Kai said without hesitation. Careful, Alpha. You don't know what I might ask for. Sarah's gaze shifted to Maya, and there was something hungry in those midnight depths. Perhaps I'll want to borrow your pretty mate for a while. She's just coming into her power, isn't she? So much potential, so much raw energy to explore. Maya felt Kai's entire body go rigid with barely controlled fury. That's not negotiable. Everything is negotiable, darling. But relax, I'm not interested in breaking up such a delicious bond. No, what I want is much simpler. Sarah's smile turned genuinely warm for the first time since her arrival. I want to know what she is. What bloodline runs through her veins that allows her to push back against my mental probes? I've been studying supernatural genetics for 3 centuries, and she's unlike anything I've encountered. I don't understand, Maya said. Neither do I, which is what makes this so exciting. Sarah clapped her hands together like a child who'd been promised a new toy. In exchange for sanctuary and protection, you'll allow me to run some tests. Nothing invasive, nothing permanent. Just a few samples and some controlled experiments to map your abilities. Maya looked at Kai, who was clearly struggling with the arrangement. She could understand his reluctance. Being studied like a lab rat wasn't exactly appealing. But the alternative was facing the hunters alone, and she was self-aware enough to know she wasn't ready for that. What kind of tests? She asked. Oh, the usual. Blood work, genetic mapping, some simple exercises to measure your psychic potential. Sarah waved a hand dismissively. I promise you'll find it fascinating. Most people go their entire lives without understanding what they're truly capable of. And in return? Complete protection within Haven's borders. No hunter, no rival pack, no supernatural entity can touch you here without my permission. You'll have comfortable quarters, access to our library and training facilities, and all the time you need to develop your abilities properly. It sounded too good to be true, which meant it probably was. But looking at Kai's wounded, exhausted face, feeling the ache in her own muscles from their desperate flight through the forest, Maya knew they didn't have many options. I agree, she said, ignoring Kai's sharp intake of breath. But I have conditions of my own. Sarah's eyes sparkled with delight. Oh, do tell. First, Kai stays with me. Whatever accommodations you provide, we share them. Second, I want full disclosure about any tests before they're performed. And third, if I say stop, everything stops. No arguments, no negotiations. You drive a hard bargain for someone in such a precarious position. Sarah studied Maya's face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Very well. I accept your terms. Just like that? Darling, you have no idea how boring it gets up here. A new test subject with unprecedented abilities and a juicy romantic drama playing out in real time? This is better than Christmas. Sarah gestured toward the valley below. Shall we get you settled? The descent into Haven was like stepping into a fairy tale. The path wound through gardens that bloomed with flowers Maya had never seen before, some that glowed with their own inner light, others that seemed to phase in and out of existence as she watched. The air itself felt different here, thick with magic and possibilities. The valley exists in a pocket dimension, Sarah explained as she led them past a pond where something large and serpentine swirled just beneath the surface. Time moves differently here. A day in the outside world might be an hour here, or a week. It depends on need and circumstance. That's impossible, Maya said automatically. So are werewolves and telepathic probes, yet here we are. Sarah's laugh was genuinely amused. You're going to have to expand your definition of possible, darling. They passed other residents as they walked, a tall man with bark-like skin who nodded politely, a woman whose hair seemed to be made of living flame, and something that might once have been human but now looked more like shadow given form. All of them stared at Maya with undisguised curiosity, but none approached. They can sense what you are, Sarah said, noticing Maya's discomfort. Or rather, what you're becoming. It's like watching a butterfly emerge from its chrysalis, fascinating and slightly unsettling. What am I becoming? Maya asked. That, my dear, is the question worth 1,000 lifetimes of study. The cottage Sarah led them to was larger than it appeared from the outside, with rooms that seemed to unfold like origami as they moved through them. The main living area was comfortable without being ostentatious: stone fireplace, overstuffed furniture, windows that looked out over the magical gardens. There's a bedroom upstairs, bathroom down the hall, kitchen fully stocked, Sarah said, moving through the space with the casual authority of someone who owned everything as far as the eye could see. I'll send someone by in the morning to begin your orientation. Orientation? Kai spoke for the first time since they'd entered the valley, his voice carefully controlled. Oh yes. Can't have you wandering around touching things you shouldn't, eating plants that might dissolve you from the inside out. Haven is safe, but it's not domesticated. Sarah's smile was sharp. Speaking of which, Maya darling, a word of advice. Don't go exploring alone until you've learned the rules. Some of our residents have particular dietary requirements. With that cheerful warning, she swept out of the cottage, leaving them alone for the first time since the attack at the clinic. Maya sank onto the sofa, suddenly overwhelmed by everything that had happened in the past 24 hours. Are you okay? Kai asked, settling beside her with careful movements that reminded her he was still healing from silver bullet wounds. I don't know. Maybe. Probably not. Maya leaned against his shoulder, drawing comfort from his solid warmth. This morning I was a veterinarian. Now I'm apparently some kind of supernatural being with unprecedented abilities, mated to a werewolf alpha, and hiding in a pocket dimension from hunters who want to capture me for reasons I don't understand. When you put it like that, it does sound overwhelming. Just a little. Maya tilted her head to look at him. Are you okay? Really okay? Those silver bullets are already healing. Accelerated recovery, remember? Kai caught her hand, bringing it to his lips to press a gentle kiss to her palm. Maya, about Sarah. You don't have to explain. We all have history. I want to explain. You deserve to know what you're walking into. Kai was quiet for a moment, gathering his thoughts. I met Sarah about 5 years ago, when I was still just a pack warrior. She was intoxicating. Powerful, mysterious, willing to share secrets about the supernatural world that most of my kind never learn. Maya felt that spike of jealousy again, but forced herself to listen without comment. We had an affair that lasted about 6 months. I thought I was in love with her, thought she felt the same way. But for Sarah, I was just entertainment. A temporary diversion. Kai's voice was matter-of-fact, but Maya could hear the old hurt underneath. When she grew bored, she moved on. Made it very clear that I'd been convenient but not irreplaceable. I'm sorry, Maya said, and meant it. Don't be. It taught me valuable lessons about power and manipulation, about the difference between attraction and genuine connection. Kai's thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. What I feel for you, Maya, it's nothing like what I thought I felt for Sarah. This is real. This is forever. The intensity in his voice made her heart race, but also made her aware of how fast everything was moving between them. Kai, we've known each other for less than a day. How can you be so certain? The mate bond doesn't lie. It's not just attraction or compatibility, it's recognition on the deepest possible level. Your soul calling to mine, acknowledging that we're two halves of the same whole. Kai shifted to face her fully. But I know it's harder for you. Your human side needs time to catch up to what your supernatural side already knows. And what does my supernatural side know? That you're home. That you're safe. That you found the person you were always meant to be with. Maya wanted to argue, wanted to insist that she needed more time, more evidence, more rational explanations. But looking into Kai's storm-gray eyes, feeling the warmth of his hand in hers, she couldn't deny the sense of rightness that had been growing stronger since the moment she'd first seen him. I'm scared, she admitted. Of me? Of this. Of how right it feels when it should feel insane. Of how much I want to trust you when I barely know you. Of what I'm becoming and what it might cost. Maya leaned closer to him, drawn by the wild, earthy scent that was becoming as familiar as her own skin. But mostly I'm scared of what happens if I lose you. Kai's expression softened, and he reached up to cup her face gently. You won't lose me. Whatever comes next, whatever we have to face, we face it together. Promise? I promise. When he kissed her, it was nothing like the desperate passion she'd expected. Instead, it was gentle, reverent, a sealing of the vows they'd just made to each other. Maya felt that flutter in her chest expand into something warm and golden, spreading through her entire body like sunlight. The mate bond, she realized. This was what it felt like when two souls recognized each other. They were interrupted by a soft knock at the door. Kai pulled away reluctantly, his eyes darker than usual with desire and something deeper. Come in, he called. The door opened to reveal a young man who looked barely out of his teens, with copper hair and eyes the color of new grass. He carried a covered tray that smelled deliciously of roasted meat and fresh bread. Sarah thought you might be hungry, he said with a shy smile. I'm Robin. I help run the kitchens here. Thank you, Maya said, accepting the tray gratefully. I'm Maya, and this is Kai. Oh, everyone knows who you are. Word travels fast in Haven. Robin's smile widened. If you need anything else, just let me know. My cottage is the one with the singing roses out front. After he left, Maya and Kai shared the meal in comfortable silence. The food was excellent, herb-crusted lamb, roasted vegetables, bread that was still warm from the oven. It was exactly what they needed after their ordeal. Better? Kai asked when they'd finished. Much. Maya curled up against his side, finally allowing herself to relax for the first time since the hunters had burst into her clinic. Kai. What happens now? Now we figure out what you are and what that means for both of us. We learn about your abilities, develop your defenses, and decide what we want to do about the people who are hunting you. And after that? After that, we build a life together. Wherever that leads us. Maya closed her eyes, letting herself imagine a future where they weren't running, weren't hiding, weren't constantly looking over their shoulders. It seemed almost too much to hope for. Tell me about your pack, she said. The good parts, before everything went wrong. Kai's voice took on a warmth she hadn't heard before as he described the Shadow Moon territory, hundreds of acres of pristine wilderness where his people could run free, where families raised their children in safety and tradition. He told her about pack gatherings under the full moon, about the bonds that made them stronger than any individual could be alone. It sounds wonderful, Maya said wistfully. It was. It will be again, once we figure out who betrayed us and why. Kai's arm tightened around her. I want to show it to you someday. I want you to meet the pack members who are loyal, who will welcome you as their alpha's mate. What if they don't accept me? They will. They'll have to, you're part of me now, which makes you part of them. Kai pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Besides, once they see what you're capable of, once they understand how powerful you are, they'll be fighting over who gets to train you. I don't feel powerful. I feel like I'm barely keeping my head above water. Power isn't about feeling strong all the time. It's about rising to meet challenges when they arise, about protecting the people you love even when you're terrified. Kai's voice was gentle but certain. You threw a hunter 20 feet to protect yourself. You chose to come here with me instead of running away from everything supernatural. You're braver than you know, Maya. She wanted to argue, but exhaustion was finally catching up with her. The events of the past day, the attack, the revelation about what she was, the desperate flight to Haven, had drained her in ways she was only beginning to understand. You should sleep, Kai said, seeming to sense her fatigue. Tomorrow is going to be a long day. Will you stay with me? Try to make me leave. Maya smiled at the mock-fierce tone in his voice. Upstairs? Upstairs. The bedroom was as comfortable as the rest of the cottage, with a large bed covered in soft linens and windows that looked out over the magical gardens. Maya could see lights moving among the plants, will-o'-the-wisps, maybe, or something equally fantastical. There are clothes in the wardrobe that should fit you, Kai said, exploring the room with the careful attention of someone accustomed to assessing potential threats. Sarah thinks of everything. Maya found a nightgown that was exactly her size, made from fabric that felt like liquid moonlight against her skin. When she emerged from the bathroom, she found Kai standing by the window, silhouetted against the star-filled sky. What are you thinking about? She asked. You. Us. How much my life has changed in 24 hours. He turned to face her, and his expression was soft with wonder. This morning I was a lone alpha, cut off from my pack, with nothing but duty and responsibility to fill my days. Tonight I'm here with my mate, in a place where we can explore what we mean to each other without outside pressures. Are you having second thoughts? Never. Kai moved toward her with predatory grace, but his eyes were warm with affection rather than hunger. Are you? Maya considered the question seriously. 24 hours ago, she would have laughed at the idea of supernatural beings, soul mates, or pocket dimensions. Now she was living in the middle of all three, and it felt more real than anything she'd ever experienced. No second thoughts, she said. Just questions. Lots of questions. I'll answer as many as I can. Starting tomorrow. Tonight, I just want to be here with you. Kai's smile was brilliant. I can arrange that. They settled into bed together, and Maya was surprised by how natural it felt to curl up against Kai's solid warmth. The mate bond, she was learning, created an intimacy that transcended physical attraction. She felt safe with him in a way that went beyond logic or reason. Kai, she said softly. Thank you. For saving my life, for bringing me here, for being patient with all my questions. Thank you for trusting me. For choosing to stay even when everything got complicated. Maya was quiet for a moment, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat beneath her ear. What do you think Sarah's tests will show? I don't know. But whatever they reveal, it won't change how I feel about you. What if I'm dangerous? What if whatever's awakening in me is something that could hurt people? Then we'll figure out how to control it. Together. Kai's arms tightened around her. Maya, there's nothing you could become that would make me love you less. Love. He'd said the word so casually, so naturally, that it took her a moment to process it. But when she did, instead of panic or doubt, she felt that warm, golden feeling spread through her chest again. I love you too, she whispered, surprising herself with the words. I know it's crazy, I know it's too soon, but it's not too soon. It's exactly the right time. Kai shifted so he could look at her face. The mate bond doesn't follow human timelines, Maya. It just is. When he kissed her this time, it was with all the passion he'd been holding back. Maya felt herself responding with an intensity that should have alarmed her, but instead felt like coming home. Every touch, every caress, every whispered endearment seemed to strengthen the connection between them. They made love slowly, tenderly, with the reverence of two people who understood they were creating something sacred. Maya felt her newly awakened powers respond to their union, creating a feedback loop of sensation and emotion that left them both breathless. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the moonlight streaming through the windows, and Maya felt more complete than she'd ever imagined possible. No regrets? Kai asked softly. None, Maya replied, and meant it completely. As they drifted off to sleep in each other's arms, neither of them noticed the shadows that moved outside their window, watchers in the night who reported everything they saw to their ancient mistress. Sarah Nightshade sat in her tower, studying the information her spies brought her, and smiled with satisfaction. The tests she had planned for Maya Chen would reveal far more than simple bloodline analysis. They would uncover secrets that had been buried for millennia, powers that could reshape the supernatural world itself. And if those revelations destroyed the touching romance playing out in her guest cottage? Well, that was simply the price of scientific discovery. In her sleep, Maya dreamed of wolves again. But this time, they weren't running free through moonlit forests. This time, they were caged, and something with midnight eyes was studying them with predatory interest. The real tests, she sensed even in sleep, hadn't even begun. If you're enjoying this channel, don't forget to like the video, drop a comment to share your thoughts, and hit the subscribe button. Also, turn on the notification bell so you'll be updated whenever more stories like this drop. Chapter 3. Maya woke the next morning with Emma's words echoing in her head like a half-remembered song. Why does the nice man smell like the big wolves in the woods? Sunlight streamed through her bedroom windows, painting golden rectangles across the hardwood floor, and for a moment Maya could almost convince herself that the previous evening had been nothing more than an elaborate dream. Emma's strange pronouncement, Kai's careful non-denials, the electric kiss that had left her lips tingling and her heart racing, surely none of it could be real. Then she heard the sound of an axe biting into wood from somewhere outside, and reality came crashing back. Maya pulled on jeans and a sweater, ran a brush through her hair, and padded barefoot to the kitchen. Through the window above the sink, she could see Kai in her backyard, methodically splitting logs with an efficiency that spoke of long practice. He'd stripped off his shirt despite the October chill, and Maya found herself transfixed by the play of muscle across his shoulders and back as he worked. There, running from his left shoulder blade down toward his ribs, were 3 parallel scars. Healed now to thin white lines, but unmistakably the claw marks she'd seen fresh and bleeding just a week ago. A week. Maya pressed her fingertips to her temples, trying to reconcile the impossible timeline. Those wounds should have taken months to heal properly, not days. Yet here was Kai, moving with fluid power and obvious strength, as if he'd never been injured at all. As if he wasn't entirely human. Maya started the coffee maker and tried to push Emma's words out of her mind. Children said strange things all the time. Emma had always been imaginative, prone to flights of fancy that worried her practical-minded mother. The fact that she'd picked up on something unusual about Kai didn't necessarily mean anything supernatural was at play. But even as Maya told herself this, she couldn't shake the memory of her niece's pale face, or the uncanny accuracy of her observations. The back door opened and Kai stepped into the kitchen, bringing with him the scent of pine and morning air and something wild that made Maya's pulse quicken. He'd pulled his shirt back on, but it clung to his damp skin in ways that made it hard for Maya to concentrate on anything else. "Morning," he said, his voice still rough with sleep. "Coffee smells good." "Help yourself," Maya managed, gesturing toward the mugs hanging beside the coffee maker. "You're up early." "Old habits, I guess." Kai poured 2 cups and handed one to Maya, their fingers brushing in the exchange. Even that brief contact sent heat racing up her arm. "Though I'm not sure where the habit comes from." Maya studied his profile as he leaned against the counter, noting the careful way he avoided her eyes. "Any more memories coming back?" "Fragments. Nothing concrete." Kai took a sip of coffee and finally met her gaze. "Maya, about last night." "Emma's just a child," Maya said quickly, not ready to examine what had happened between them on the porch. Not ready to admit how badly she wanted it to happen again. "She has an active imagination. Always has." Something flickered across Kai's expression, relief, maybe, or disappointment. "Of course. Children see monsters in shadows." "Exactly." Maya forced a smile and moved toward the refrigerator. "What do you say we make some breakfast? I've got eggs, bacon, pancake mix." "Maya." Kai's hand caught her wrist as she reached for the refrigerator handle, his touch gentle but firm. We need to talk about this. About what? Emma's overactive imagination? About what you saw in my eyes last night. About the way I reacted to your blood. About the fact that your dog treats me like his pack leader instead of a stranger. Maya's breath caught in her throat. She could feel the heat of Kai's palm against her skin, could smell that wild, masculine scent that seemed to cling to him like cologne. When she looked up into his amber eyes, she saw knowledge there. And fear. What are you trying to tell me, Kai? Before he could answer, the sound of a car in the driveway made them both freeze. Maya glanced at the kitchen clock, 8:30 on a Sunday morning. Too early for social calls, too late for emergencies. Bear's bark echoed through the house, followed by the slam of a car door and familiar voices. Maya's heart sank as she recognized her sister's tone, sharp with worry and determination. "Rachel," she said unnecessarily. Kai dropped her wrist and stepped back, his entire posture shifting into something more guarded. "She's brought Emma back." "Maya." Rachel's voice carried through the front door, followed by the sound of footsteps on the porch. "We need to talk." Maya hurried to answer the door before her sister could bang it down. Rachel stood on the porch with Emma beside her, both of them looking like they'd slept about as well as Maya had. Rachel's lawyer face was firmly in place, all sharp edges and professional skepticism, while Emma clutched a rolled-up piece of paper in her small hands. "Rachel, what are you doing here?" "I thought Emma was staying with you this weekend." "She was. She is. But she insisted on coming back." Rachel stepped into the house without invitation, her gaze immediately scanning the living room as if looking for evidence of criminal activity. "She's been having nightmares all night. About wolves." Maya's stomach dropped. "Nightmares?" She kept talking about the nice man being in danger, about other wolves coming to hurt him. Rachel's voice dropped to a whisper as she glanced toward the kitchen, where Kai had presumably taken refuge. "Maya, what the hell is going on here?" "Nothing's going on. Emma had a bad dream." "It wasn't a dream, Aunt Maya." Emma stepped forward, her green eyes solemn and far too adult. "I drew a picture. Want to see?" Before Maya could respond, Emma was unrolling her paper, revealing a crayon drawing that made Maya's blood turn to ice in her veins. The picture showed a man with dark hair and amber eyes, unmistakably Kai, but he wasn't entirely human in the drawing. Emma had given him pointed ears and elongated canines, and his hands ended in claws instead of fingers. Most disturbing of all, she'd drawn 3 parallel scars running from his shoulder to his ribs, rendered in careful red crayon. Maya had never told Emma about Kai's scars. Had never mentioned them to anyone. "Emma," Maya whispered, sinking down to her niece's eye level. "Where did you see these scars?" "In the picture in my head," Emma said matter-of-factly. "Uncle Kai was hurt real bad, but then he got better super fast because that's what happens when wolves heal. Grandma Rose told me stories about it." Rachel made a sound that might have been a curse or a prayer. "Emma, honey, Grandma Rose's stories were just fairy tales." "No, they weren't." Emma's voice carried the absolute certainty that only children possessed. "Grandma Rose said there were still wolves that could walk like people, and that some people had wolf blood in them too. She said our family was special, that we could see things other people couldn't." Maya felt the world tilt sideways around her. Her grandmother had told her and Rachel similar stories when they were children, tales of shapeshifters and ancient magics that still lingered in the Colorado mountains. Maya had dismissed them as folklore, the kind of stories mountain people told to explain things they didn't understand. But Emma was only 7. She shouldn't remember those stories, shouldn't be able to draw details she'd never seen. Unless she really could see things other people couldn't. "Emma," Maya said carefully, "what else do you see when you look at Kai?" Emma tilted her head, considering. "He's sad. Really, really sad. And scared. There are other wolves looking for him, mean ones who want to hurt him because he chose people over pack." Emma's small face scrunched up with concentration. "And he loves you, Aunt Maya. It makes his smell different, like flowers and sunshine instead of just moonlight and woods. The simple, innocent words hit Maya like a physical blow. She rocked back on her heels, staring at her niece in amazement and terror. "That's enough," Rachel said sharply, moving to put her hands on Emma's shoulders. "Emma, you can't say things like that about people. It's not polite." "But it's true, Mama. I can smell it." "Children don't smell emotions, Emma. That's not how the world works." "It's how my world works," Emma said with devastating simplicity. Maya stood on unsteady legs, her mind reeling. Everything Emma had said aligned perfectly with her own observations about Kai, his predatory grace, his mysterious injuries, the way animals reacted to him. The way she felt drawn to him despite every rational thought in her head. "Maya?" Kai's voice came from the kitchen doorway, low and careful. "Is everything all right?" Emma's head snapped toward the sound, and her small face lit up with something that might have been relief. "Uncle Kai. I dreamed about you last night. You were running from the bad wolves." Kai went very still, his amber eyes fixed on Emma's face with an intensity that made Maya's breath catch. "Did I get away?" "Not yet," Emma said solemnly. "But you will. Aunt Maya's going to help you." The certainty in her niece's voice sent chills down Maya's spine. This wasn't the imagination of a 7-year-old anymore. This was prophecy, delivered with the absolute faith that only children possessed. Rachel must have sensed it too, because her face had gone pale beneath her lawyer's composure. "Emma, I think we should go home now. But I want to show Uncle Kai my picture." Before anyone could stop her, Emma was running toward Kai, her crayon drawing clutched in her small hands. Kai knelt to her level, accepting the paper with the kind of careful reverence usually reserved for ancient artifacts. Maya watched his face as he studied Emma's drawing, saw the exact moment recognition and something like grief flickered across his features. "It's very good," he said quietly. "You're quite an artist." "I drew what I see," Emma said. "The real you, not just the people-shaped you." Kai's hands trembled slightly as he rolled the paper back up. "And what do you think of the real me, Emma?" Emma studied his face with those two old eyes. "I think you're lonely. And I think you've been hurt a lot. But I also think you're good, even if the other wolves don't think so." "Emma." Rachel's voice was sharp with barely controlled panic. "Come here. Now." But Emma ignored her mother, reaching up to pat Kai's cheek with the kind of gentle sympathy that children offered wounded animals. "It's okay, Uncle Kai," she whispered. "Aunt Maya won't let them hurt you." The words seemed to hit Kai like a physical blow. He closed his eyes, his jaw clenching with what looked like pain, and Maya felt her heart crack open in her chest. Whatever Kai was, whatever he'd done, he was suffering. And Emma, with her innocent clarity, had seen straight through to the heart of it. "We should let you get back to your morning," Rachel said, her voice tight with the effort of maintaining normalcy. "Emma, say goodbye." "Bye, Uncle Kai." "Bye, Aunt Maya." Emma hugged them both, then skipped toward the door as if she hadn't just shattered Maya's understanding of reality. "Don't forget to be careful tonight. The moon's getting bigger." And then they were gone, leaving Maya and Kai alone with the weight of Emma's words hanging between them like a loaded gun. Maya stared at the closed door for a long moment, then turned to face Kai. He was still kneeling where Emma had left him, her drawing clutched in his hands like a lifeline. "She's right, isn't she?" Maya said quietly. "About what you are." Kai's shoulders sagged, and suddenly he looked older, more tired. "Maya. Don't lie to me. Not anymore." Maya moved closer, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his amber eyes. "Emma can see things, can't she? Things other people miss." "Yes. And what she sees when she looks at you, that's the truth." Kai met her gaze, and Maya saw acknowledgement there. And resignation. Yes. The simple admission should have terrified her. Should have sent her running for the phone to call the sheriff, or a priest, or a psychiatrist. Instead, Maya felt something inside her chest settle into place, like a puzzle piece finally finding its proper position. "Show me," she said. Kai blinked. "What?" "Show me what you really are." "Maya, you don't understand." "Then help me understand." Maya reached out and covered his hands with hers, feeling the tremor that ran through his body at the contact. "You said I don't know what I'm getting into. So show me." For a long moment, Kai just stared at her. Then he shook his head slowly. "Not here. Not in your house. If something goes wrong." "Nothing will go wrong. You can't know that." Kai stood, pulling his hands free from hers. "Maya, what I am, what I can become, it's dangerous. More dangerous than you realize." "Are you dangerous to me?" The question hung between them, loaded with implications neither of them was ready to voice. "No," Kai said finally. "Never to you." "Then show me." Maya saw the exact moment his resolve cracked. His amber eyes went molten, and something wild and desperate flickered across his features. "Outside," he said. "In the woods. And Maya, once you see, you can't unsee. You can't go back to not knowing." "I don't want to go back." The words surprised her with their honesty. Maya realized she meant them completely. Whatever Kai was, whatever he could become, she wanted to know. Needed to know, with a desperation that went bone deep. Kai studied her face for another long moment, then nodded. "Get your jacket. And Maya, if you change your mind, if you get scared, I want you to run. Don't look back, don't try to help. Just run." Maya wanted to argue, to tell him she wasn't going anywhere. But something in his expression warned her that this wasn't the time for bravado. "I'll get my jacket," she said. 20 minutes later, they were walking through the pine forest behind Maya's house, following a deer trail that wound deeper into the mountains. The morning air was crisp and clean, filled with the scent of evergreens and the promise of winter. Bear trotted ahead of them, his tail wagging as if this were nothing more than a pleasant hike. Kai had been silent since they'd left the house, his attention focused on their surroundings with an intensity that made Maya's pulse quicken. Every few minutes he would stop and tilt his head, listening to sounds she couldn't hear. "How far?" Maya asked when they'd been walking for nearly half an hour. "Here's good," Kai said, stopping in a small clearing where autumn sunlight filtered through the pine boughs in golden shafts. Far enough from the house that he stopped, his head snapping toward the north. "What is it?" "Nothing." Maybe nothing. But Kai's posture had shifted into something more alert, more predatory. "Maya, I need you to stand over there, by that big pine. Don't move, no matter what you see." Maya started to protest, then caught sight of his expression. The careful control he'd maintained for the past week was cracking, revealing something wild and dangerous underneath. She moved to the pine tree without argument. Kai walked to the center of the clearing, his movements fluid and graceful. He turned to face her, and Maya saw that his eyes had gone completely amber now, glowing with an inner light that definitely wasn't human. "Last chance," he said, his voice rougher than before. "You can still walk away. I'm not going anywhere." Kai nodded once, then closed his eyes and tilted his face toward the sky. Maya had expected something dramatic, bones cracking, screams of pain, the Hollywood version of transformation. Instead, the change was subtle at first, a ripple that seemed to run beneath Kai's skin like water. His breathing deepened, his muscles tensed, and suddenly he was dropping to his hands and knees in one fluid motion. The actual shift happened so quickly that Maya's eyes couldn't quite track it. One moment Kai was kneeling in the clearing, human-shaped and familiar. The next, a massive wolf stood where he had been, its dark fur gleaming in the dappled sunlight. Maya's breath left her lungs in a rush. The wolf was enormous, easily twice the size of any natural wolf she'd ever seen. Its coat was dark brown and black, with lighter markings around the muzzle and chest. And its eyes were the same molten amber that had haunted her dreams. The wolf that had been Kai watched her with an intelligence that was completely, utterly human. Waiting for her reaction. waiting to see if she would run screaming back to civilization. Instead, Maya found herself stepping forward. "Kai," she whispered. The wolf's ears pricked forward, and it made a sound that was part whine, part rumble. When Maya took another step closer, it dropped to its belly in a gesture of submission that reminded her painfully of Bear's reaction to Kai. "Oh my God," Maya breathed. "You're beautiful." The wolf, Kai, lifted his massive head, and Maya saw surprise flicker in those amber eyes. She took another step forward, then another, until she was close enough to touch. "May I?" she asked, extending her hand. The wolf remained perfectly still as Maya's fingers found the soft fur behind his ears. His coat was thick and warm, and when she scratched gently, a rumbling purr vibrated through his chest. "Emma was right," Maya said wonderingly. "You are a wolf. A werewolf." The wolf made that whining sound again, and Maya could hear the distress in it. The fear that she would reject him, send him away, call him a monster. "Shoo," she soothed, stroking the broad head. "It's all right. I'm not afraid." And she wasn't. Sitting here in the forest with a creature that could probably kill her without breaking a sweat, Maya felt safer than she had in her entire life. This was Kai, just in a different form. The same gentleness, the same wounded soul, the same careful way he held himself back from touching her too intimately. The sound of distant howling shattered the peaceful moment. The wolf that was Kai went rigid beneath Maya's hands, his head snapping toward the sound. The howls came again, closer this time, and Maya felt ice settle in her stomach. "The other wolves," she whispered. "The ones Emma saw in her dreams." Kai began to shift back to human form, the change happening even more quickly in reverse. Within seconds he was human again, naked and gorgeous and absolutely terrified. "They found me," he said, already reaching for his clothes. "Maya, we have to get back to the house. Now." "Who are they? What do they want?" "They're my pack. Former pack." Kai yanked on his jeans with shaking hands. "And they want me dead." The howls came a third time, and this time Maya could hear the hunting cry in them. The promise of violence. "Why?" she asked as they started running back toward the house. "Because I chose you over them," Kai said simply. "Because I broke pack law by staying with a human. Because I refused to kill you when they ordered me to." Maya stumbled, the words hitting her like a physical blow. "They sent you to kill me? Your veterinary work was getting too close to exposing us. The pack decided you were a threat that needed to be eliminated." Kai caught her arm, steadying her as they ran. "I was supposed to make it look like an accident. But when I saw you, when I met you, you couldn't do it. I fell in love with you instead." The simple, honest words should have been romantic. Instead, they were terrifying, because they meant that a pack of werewolves was hunting them both. They burst from the tree line into Maya's backyard just as the first of the hunting howls echoed from the forest behind them. Bear was waiting on the porch, his hackles raised and his teeth bared in a snarl Maya had never seen before. Inside, Kai ordered, pushing Maya toward the house. "Lock the doors, close the curtains. Don't let them see you." "What about you?" "I have to face them. It's pack law." "Absolutely not." Maya grabbed his arm, her fingers digging into his bicep. "You said they want to kill you. They'll kill you if I don't surrender myself. Then we fight." Kai stared at her in amazement. "Maya, you're human. You can't fight werewolves." "Maybe not. But I'm not going to hide while they murder the man I love." The words slipped out before Maya could stop them, raw and honest and completely true. Kai's eyes went wide, and for a moment the sound of approaching howls faded into background noise. "You love me," he whispered. "Apparently I do," Maya said, surprised by her own certainty. "Insane as it sounds." Kai's hands framed her face, his thumbs brushing across her cheekbones with infinite tenderness. "Maya. Tell me later," she said, pulling him toward the house. "After we survive this." But even as they ran for the safety of her home, Maya could hear the pack getting closer. And she had the terrible feeling that locked doors and drawn curtains wouldn't be enough to protect them from the storm that was coming. The hunt had found them at last. If you're enjoying this channel, don't forget to like the video, drop a comment to share your thoughts, and hit the subscribe button. Also, turn on the notification bell so you'll be updated whenever more stories like this drop. Chapter 4. The attack came at dusk. Maya was in the barn tending to Molly, her aging mare, when the first terrified bleating reached her ears. She dropped the curry brush and ran toward the sound, her heart hammering against her ribs as she recognized the panic in her sheep's voices. The sight that greeted her in the pasture made her blood turn to ice. For massive wolves had cornered her small flock against the far fence, their silver-gray coats gleaming in the dying light. These weren't the wolves she was used to seeing in the Colorado wilderness. They were enormous, easily twice the size of natural wolves, with an intelligence in their pale eyes that was disturbingly human. Maya's sheep huddled together in terror, their frightened bleating filling the air as the wolves circled them with predatory patience. One of the wolves, the largest, with distinctive white markings around its muzzle, lifted its head and looked directly at Maya across the pasture. For a moment that stretched into eternity, woman and wolf stared at each other. Then the creature's lips pulled back in what could only be called a smile, revealing teeth that gleamed like ivory daggers in the twilight. Maya fumbled for her cell phone, her hands shaking so badly she could barely grip it. No signal. Of course there was no signal. She was alone, with 4 supernatural predators terrorizing her livestock and no way to call for help. That's when she remembered Kai. "Kai!" she screamed, her voice echoing across the pasture. "Kai, help me!" The response was immediate and devastating. A roar of pure rage split the evening air, a sound that was part human fury and part animal wrath. Maya spun toward the house just in time to see Kai exploding from the back door, moving faster than any human had a right to move. But he wasn't entirely human anymore. Even as he ran toward the pasture, Maya could see the change overtaking him. His face was elongating, his teeth sharpening to fangs, his hands shifting into something that was part human, part claw. He was caught between forms, neither fully man nor fully wolf, and the sight should have terrified her. Instead, Maya felt a fierce surge of satisfaction. This was Kai protecting what was his. Protecting her. The 4 wolves in her pasture scattered as Kai vaulted the fence with inhuman grace. The largest, the one with white markings, turned to face him, and Maya heard words in the growling, snarling sounds they made. Not English, but some primal language that predated human speech. The confrontation was brief and brutal. The white-marked wolf lunged at Kai, who met the attack head-on with claws and fangs that definitely weren't human. They rolled across the pasture in a tangle of fur and muscle and violence, while the other 3 wolves circled, looking for an opening. Maya found herself pressed against the barn wall, her scientific mind cataloging impossible details even as her heart raced with terror and fascination. Kai's partial transformation was unlike anything she'd ever imagined. He retained his human intelligence and speech but possessed the strength and weapons of his wolf form. When he spoke, his voice was a guttural rumble that carried absolute authority. "Get out," he snarled at the circling wolves. "She's under my protection." The white-marked wolf pulled back from their grappling match, blood streaming from claw marks across its shoulder. When it spoke, its voice was female, cultured despite the inhuman resonance. "You've forgotten your place, Kai Blackwood," the wolf said. "Forgotten your duty to the pack." Blackwood. Maya's breath caught in her throat. The same surname as her own, though she'd never mentioned it to Kai. Had never told him her full name. "I remember my duty," Kai replied, his amber eyes glowing with inner fire. "My duty is to protect my mate." The word hit Maya like a physical blow. Mate. Not girlfriend, not lover. Mate, with all the primal, permanent implications the word carried. "Your mate." The female wolf's laugh was like breaking glass. "She's human, Kai. Weak. Mortal. She'll be dead in 50 years while you live on for centuries. You would throw away pack law for a brief infatuation?" "I would throw away everything for her." The simple, honest words sent heat racing through Maya's veins. Kai meant it. She could hear the absolute conviction in his voice, see it in the way he positioned himself between her and the other wolves. Then you've chosen your path, the female said coldly. And your punishment. The attack came without warning. All 4 wolves launched themselves at Kai simultaneously, and Maya screamed as they brought him down in a tangle of claws and fangs. For a terrifying moment, she lost sight of him in the melee, heard only the sounds of snarling and the wet noise of claws tearing flesh. Then Kai's roar shattered the evening air, and the wolves scattered like leaves in a hurricane. He rose from the ground in his full wolf form now, massive and dark and magnificent. The other wolves were already retreating, but Kai pursued them to the edge of the pasture, his warning howl echoing off the mountains. Maya watched in fascination and terror as he shifted back to human form, the change flowing over him like water. When it was complete, he stood naked and bloodied in her pasture, his chest heaving with exertion and rage. Maya, he called without turning around. Are you hurt? No, she managed, though her voice sounded strange and far away. I'm fine. Kai finally turned to face her, and Maya saw the exact moment he realized what had just happened. The careful control he'd maintained for days was gone, shattered by the need to protect her. There would be no more pretending, no more carefully constructed lies about amnesia and animal attacks. Maya had seen him for what he truly was. I'm sorry, he said quietly, walking toward her with the cautious movements of a man approaching a skittish animal. I know this isn't how you wanted to find out. Find out what, exactly? Maya's voice was steadier than she felt. That you're a werewolf? That your last name is apparently Blackwood, same as mine? That you just called me your mate in front of a pack of supernatural assassins? Kai stopped just out of arm's reach, his amber eyes searching her face for signs of rejection or fear. Maya. Don't. Maya held up a hand, her mind racing as she tried to process everything she'd just witnessed. Don't apologize, don't explain, don't try to make this easier for me. I need a moment to think. Kai nodded, standing perfectly still as Maya paced the length of the barn wall. Her sheep had calmed now that the immediate threat was gone, but Maya could still feel the adrenaline singing through her system. Werewolves were real. She'd just watched her lover, her mate, apparently, fight off 4 of them in defense of her livestock. The same man who'd been helping her with chores for the past week, who made coffee every morning and chopped her firewood without being asked. The same man who'd been lying to her about his memory. The amnesia, Maya said finally. It's not real, is it? Kai's jaw clenched, but he didn't try to deny it. No. Not entirely. You remember who you are. Where you come from. Why you're here. Yes. The simple admission hit Maya harder than she'd expected. She'd been prepared for the werewolf revelation, had seen enough evidence to accept that supernatural truth. But the lying felt like a betrayal. Why? She asked. Why lie to me? Because the truth would have sent you running. Kai's voice was rough with emotion. Because you never would have let me stay if you'd known I was sent here to kill you. Maya's blood turned to ice. To kill me? Your veterinary work, Kai said, his words coming faster now, as if he needed to get them all out before she stopped listening. You'd been treating animals with unusual injuries, documenting attack patterns that were getting too close to exposing our kind. The pack decided you were a threat. So they sent you to eliminate me. Yes. Maya stared at him, trying to reconcile the man she'd fallen for with the killer he claimed to be. But you didn't. I couldn't. Kai took a step closer, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. From the moment I saw you that night on the mountain road, bleeding and determined to save me despite the danger, I was lost. You could have driven past, left me to die in the storm. Instead, you risked your life to help a stranger. I'm a veterinarian. I save lives. It's what I do. It's who you are, Kai corrected. And that's why I fell in love with you before I even knew your name. The words hung between them in the gathering darkness, heavy with implication. Maya could feel the pull of him, the magnetic attraction that had drawn her from the very beginning. But she could also feel the weight of his deception, the knowledge that everything between them had been built on lies. "The other wolves," she said, changing the subject before she could be swayed by the naked emotion in his voice. "They called you Kai Blackwood. It's my name. My real name. Blackwood is my name too." "I know." Maya's breath caught. "How do you know?" "Because you're my cousin, Maya. Distant cousin, but family nonetheless." Kai's amber eyes were steady on hers, no longer hiding the truth. "Your great-grandmother was Pack. She left the mountains when she fell in love with a human, but she passed the bloodline down to her children." The world tilted sideways around Maya. "That's impossible." "Is it? Haven't you always felt different? Haven't you always been able to sense things other people missed? To communicate with animals in ways that seemed uncanny?" Maya thought of Emma's strange abilities, of her own inexplicable connection to the natural world, of the stories her grandmother had told about their family's special gifts. "The stories Grandma Rose used to tell," she whispered. "About our family being special, about having wolf blood. All true. But I'm human. I can't transform, I don't have superhuman strength. The bloodline is diluted after 3 generations. You have the gifts but not the curse." Kai's voice was gentle now, coaxing. "That's why the animals trust you so completely, why you can heal injuries that should be fatal, why you knew I was telling the truth about being in love with you." Maya's mind reeled as pieces clicked into place. Her uncanny success rate with injured animals, her ability to calm even the most aggressive patients, the way she'd instinctively known Kai wasn't dangerous despite all evidence to the contrary. "You're saying I'm part werewolf?" "I'm saying your family. Pack. The only family I have left." The loneliness in his voice broke something open in Maya's chest. She looked at this man, this creature, who'd risked everything to protect her, who'd turned against his own kind rather than harm her. "Show me," she said suddenly. Kai blinked. "What?" "Show me what you really are. All of it." Maya took a step closer, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. "I want to understand. Maya, you've seen enough. I've seen you fight. I want to see you change. Want to understand how it works, what it feels like." She reached out and touched his bare chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart beneath her palm. "I want to know the man I'm falling in love with." Something shifted in Kai's expression, the careful control giving way to something more primal. "You're not afraid of me." "I should be. Any rational person would be terrified." Maya smiled up at him, amazed by her own certainty. "But when I look at you, all I see is the man who's been chopping my firewood and making my coffee and looking at me like I'm the most precious thing in the world." "You are," Kai said fiercely. "You're everything." This time when he reached for her, Maya didn't pull away. His hands framed her face with infinite gentleness, his thumbs brushing across her cheekbones as he searched her eyes for any sign of rejection. "The transformation," he said quietly. "It's not always controllable. Strong emotions can trigger it, and right now you're barely holding on," Maya finished. "I can see it in your eyes." Kai's control snapped like a rubber band stretched too far. One moment he was human, the next he was something in between, his face partially elongated, his eyes glowing amber, his canine teeth extended just enough to be visible when he spoke. "This is what I am," he said, his voice rougher now, carrying in human harmonics. "Monster and man, predator and protector. If you stay with me, this is what you'll have to accept." Maya stared up at him, taking in the subtle changes that marked him as other. He was still recognizably Kai, but now she could see the wolf beneath the human facade. The predator that lurked just beneath the surface of the gentle man she'd come to love. "You're beautiful," she whispered. Kai went very still. "Maya. You're terrifying and dangerous and absolutely beautiful." Maya reached up to touch the elongated line of his jaw, marveling at the way he shivered beneath her fingers. "Is this why you've been holding back? Why you've been so careful not to touch me?" I was afraid I'd lose control. Afraid I'd hurt you. You won't hurt me. You can't know that. I know you, Maya said with absolute certainty. I know that you'd rather die than cause me pain. I know that you've been sleeping in my guest room when you could have taken what you wanted at any time. I know that you love me enough to fight your own pack. Kai's hands tightened on her face, his amber eyes blazing with need and desperate longing. Maya, if we do this, if you accept me as I am, there's no going back. The mating bond isn't something humans understand. It's permanent, unbreakable. Are you asking me to be your mate? I'm telling you that you already are, Kai said roughly. From the moment I saw you in that hospital, something in me recognized you as mine. The only question is whether you're willing to accept the bond. Maya looked up into his amber eyes and saw her future there. A future filled with danger and magic and a love deeper than anything she'd ever imagined. It should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like coming home. Yes, she whispered. Kai's mouth crashed down on hers with desperate hunger, all his careful control finally shattered. Maya melted into him, her hands fisting in his dark hair as she kissed him back with equal desperation. This was what she'd been waiting for, this claiming, this complete surrender to the impossible. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Kai's eyes had gone completely wolf. Inside, he growled against her lips. Now. Before I take you right here in the pasture. Maya didn't argue. She let him lead her back to the house, hyper-aware of the leashed power in his movements, the way his partially transformed state made him seem larger, more dangerous. But she wasn't afraid. If anything, the predator in him called to something wild in her own blood. The house felt like a sanctuary after the violence of the pasture. Kai locked the door behind them and drew the curtains, his movements efficient and protective. When he turned back to Maya, she saw the struggle playing out across his features, human restraint warring with wolf instinct. Tell me you're sure, he said, his voice barely recognizable. Because once this happens, once I claim you properly, there's no going back. Maya reached for the hem of her sweater and pulled it over her head in one smooth motion. Kai's breath hissed between his teeth as she stood before him in just her jeans and bra, her skin pale in the lamplight. I'm sure, she said, moving toward him with deliberate intent. I want you, Kai. All of you. Human and wolf and everything in between. The last of his control shattered like glass. Kai was on her in an instant, his mouth hot and demanding as he backed her toward the bedroom. Maya met his passion with her own, her hands exploring the hard planes of his chest and shoulders as clothing disappeared in their wake. When he finally laid her down on her bed, she was trembling with need and anticipation. Kai loomed over her, his amber eyes glowing in the darkness as he traced patterns of fire across her skin with his mouth and hands. Mine, he growled against her throat, his canine teeth grazing her pulse point. My mate, my heart, my everything. Yours, Maya agreed breathlessly, arching beneath him as pleasure spiraled through her system. Always yours. The claiming was primal and transformative, a joining that went deeper than flesh and bone. Maya felt something fundamental shift inside her as Kai made her his in the most basic way possible, felt ancient instincts awakening in her blood as their bodies moved together in perfect synchronization. When the wave finally crashed over them, Maya felt the mating bond snap into place like a physical thing. Suddenly she could sense Kai's emotions as clearly as her own, could feel the depth of his love and devotion like a warm glow in her chest. I can feel you, she whispered against his shoulder as they lay tangled together in the aftermath. In my mind, in my heart, I can feel you. The bond, Kai murmured, pressing soft kisses to her temple. It links us permanently. We'll always be able to find each other now, no matter how far apart we are. Maya lifted her head to study his face in the darkness. Is that why you were so afraid? Because you knew this would happen? I was afraid because I knew I'd never be able to let you go. Kai's hand traced gentle patterns on her bare back. And because I knew my pack would never stop hunting us. The reminder of the outside world sent a chill through Maya's contentment. The wolves tonight, they were your pack. My former pack. I renounced them when I chose you over duty. Kai's arms tightened around her protectively. They won't give up easily. Pack law demands my death for betraying them. Then we fight them together. Maya, you don't understand what you're up against. These aren't ordinary wolves, they're ancient, powerful, ruthless. They've survived for centuries by eliminating threats without mercy. Let them come, Maya said fiercely. This is my territory, my home. I won't be driven away by a bunch of supernatural bullies. Kai smiled down at her, love and admiration shining in his amber eyes. My fierce mate. But promise me, if something happens to me, if they manage to. Nothing's going to happen to you. Maya silenced him with a kiss, pouring all her love and determination into the contact. We're going to figure this out together. They made love again in the deep hours of the night, slower this time, savoring each touch and caress like a promise. Maya fell asleep in Kai's arms feeling safer than she ever had in her life, secure in the knowledge that she'd found her mate, her other half, her forever. She woke alone. Maya sat up in bed, her heart immediately racing as she realized Kai was gone. The sheets beside her were cold, as if he'd been absent for hours. Panic clawed at her throat as she called his name and received no answer. Then she saw the note on the pillow where his head should have been. Maya, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. The pack tracked me here last night, and they won't stop until they have their justice. I can't let you be hurt because of my choices. I've led them away from you, but they'll be back. Take Emma and leave Colorado. Go somewhere they can't find you. Live the life you deserve, free from the darkness that follows me. I love you more than my own life. That's why I have to go. Forever yours, Kai. Maya crushed the note in her trembling hands, fury and heartbreak warring in her chest. How dare he make that choice for her? How dare he leave after everything they'd shared, everything they'd promised each other? The mating bond pulsed weakly in her chest, confirming that Kai was still alive but growing more distant by the hour. He was running, trying to draw the pack away from her, sacrificing himself to keep her safe. Like hell. Maya was pulling on clothes with shaking hands when she heard a car in the driveway. She looked out the window to see Rachel's sedan, with Emma bouncing excitedly in the passenger seat. Maya forced herself to calm down before answering the door. Emma took one look at her face and immediately frowned. Aunt Maya? Where's Uncle Kai? He had to go away for a while, sweetheart. Emma's frown deepened, and she tilted her head in that way that meant she was processing information adults couldn't detect. He's lying, she said finally. What? Uncle Kai. He's lying about the forgetting. Emma's green eyes were solemn and far too knowing. I can smell the sadness when he pretends. He remembers everything, but he doesn't want you to know because it makes him hurt inside. Maya's heart clenched. Even Emma had seen through Kai's deception about his amnesia. How had Maya been so blind? Emma, honey, Rachel said, shooting Maya an apologetic look. We talked about this. You can't just say things like that about people. But it's true, Mama. Uncle Kai remembers who hurt him and why he had to run away. He remembers the bad wolves who want to hurt Aunt Maya because she's family. Emma looked up at Maya with those two old eyes. He remembers that he was supposed to hurt you, but he fell in love instead. Maya's breath caught. Emma knew. Somehow, this 7-year-old child had pieced together the entire truth that Maya had been struggling to understand. Emma. The bad wolves came last night, Emma continued matter-of-factly. I dreamed about it. They hurt Uncle Kai and now he's running away to keep you safe. But it won't work, because they want you to now. Ice settled in Maya's stomach. What do you mean? You're part of the pack now. Uncle Kai's mate. That makes you a traitor too. Emma's small face was grave with understanding. They'll come for you next. Maya sank down to Emma's level, her mind racing. Emma, how do you know all this? Grandma Rose visits me in my dreams sometimes. She says our family has always been special, that we can see things other people miss. She says you're going to need to remember what you really are soon. What I really am? Emma nodded solemnly. Wolf touched. Like her, like me. Like all the women in our family. She reached out and patted Maya's cheek with infinite gentleness. Don't worry, Aunt Maya. Uncle Kai will come back. He has to, you're his mate now. The bond won't let him stay away forever. Rachel was staring at her daughter in shock, but Maya felt pieces clicking into place in her mind. Emma's abilities, her own connection to animals, the stories their grandmother had told, it was all connected. All part of a legacy she was only beginning to understand. Maya was still processing Emma's revelations when she heard her phone buzzing from the kitchen. She hurried to answer it, hoping against hope that it was Kai. Instead, Dr. Sarah Chen's voice came through the speaker, tight with concern. Maya, we need to talk. Can you come to the hospital? There's been a break-in at your clinic. Maya's blood turned to ice. A break-in? Someone went through your files, Maya. All your records of unusual animal attacks over the past year, they're gone. And there's something else. We found evidence that someone's been copying your research, sending reports to an organization I've never heard of. Maya gripped the phone tighter, her mind racing. What kind of organization? Something called the Fenris Institute. Maya, I think someone's been using your work to track supernatural creatures. And I think they might be coming for you next. The line went dead, leaving Maya staring at her phone in growing horror. It wasn't just the pack she had to worry about now. Someone else was hunting werewolves, and they'd been using her own research to do it. Maya looked out the window at the forest beyond her property, where Kai was somewhere running for his life. Where unknown enemies were closing in from all sides. The game had changed, and Maya was right in the center of it. Whether she liked it or not, the war was coming to her. If you're enjoying this channel, don't forget to like the video, drop a comment to share your thoughts, and hit the subscribe button. Also, turn on the notification bell so you'll be updated whenever more stories like this drop. Chapter 5. Maya drove to the hospital with her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Emma's words echoed in her mind with every mile. Uncle Kai is lying about the forgetting. The bad wolves want you too now. You're going to need to remember what you really are soon. What she really was. The phrase haunted Maya as she navigated the mountain roads, her enhanced senses. When had they become enhanced, picking up scents and sounds that should have been impossible to detect from inside a moving vehicle. The musk of deer in the forest, the distant howl of what her rational mind wanted to believe was a coyote but her instincts knew was something else entirely. The parking lot at Cedar Ridge Regional was nearly empty when Maya arrived, the early morning shift just beginning their rounds. Dr. Sarah Chen met her at the staff entrance, her usually composed face tight with worry and something that looked suspiciously like fear. Thank God you're here, Sarah said, ushering Maya through the corridors toward the administrative wing. Maya, what I'm about to show you, it's going to change everything you think you know about your practice. Sarah, you're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. Sarah stopped outside a conference room and turned to face Maya directly. Before we go in there, I need you to promise me something. Whatever you see, whatever you learn, you'll be careful. There are people involved in this who are dangerous, Maya. More dangerous than you realize. Maya's stomach clenched with dread. Just show me. The conference room had been transformed into a makeshift investigation center. Maya's breath caught as she saw the contents spread across the large table, photocopies of her veterinary files, enlarged photographs of animal attack wounds, detailed maps of the Colorado wilderness marked with colored pins. But it was the man sitting at the far end of the table who made Maya's blood turn to ice. Hello, Maya, Dr. James Crawford said, rising to his feet with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I've been waiting for you. Maya stared at her veterinary partner in shock. Crawford had been working with her for over 2 years, had been her mentor when she'd first taken over the practice. She'd trusted him, relied on his experience and expertise. Now she realized she'd never really known him at all. James, she said carefully, her instincts screaming danger even as her rational mind struggled to process the situation. What is all this? Your life's work, Crawford said, gesturing to the files spread across the table. Though you never realized the true significance of what you were documenting, did you? Maya moved closer to the table, her enhanced senses picking up something wrong about Crawford's scent. There was something metallic underneath his cologne, something that made the hair on the back of her neck stand up. I don't understand. Look at the patterns, Maya. Crawford's voice carried the patient tone of a teacher instructing a slow student. The attack sites, the wound patterns, the timing of the incidents. What do you see? Despite her growing unease, Maya found herself studying the maps and photographs with professional interest. She documented dozens of unusual animal attacks over the past 2 years, wounds that didn't match any known predator species, incidents that occurred during specific lunar cycles. The attacks follow migration patterns, she said slowly. Like a pack moving through territory. Exactly. A very specific kind of pack. Crawford opened a thick folder and spread additional photographs across the table. Tell me, Maya, in all your years of veterinary training, have you ever seen bite marks quite like these? Maya leaned forward to examine the photos more closely, then jerked back in recognition. The bite patterns were enormous, far too large for any natural wolf. But she'd seen marks exactly like them, on Kai's back, on the sheep that had been attacked by his former pack. These are werewolf attacks, she whispered. Crawford's smile widened, revealing teeth that seemed too white, too sharp. Very good. It took you longer than I expected to piece it together, but then, you've been distracted lately. How long have you known? About werewolves in general? Years. About this specific pack? Since the first attack you documented 18 months ago. Crawford moved around the table toward Maya, his movements predatory despite his human form. About your house guest? Since the night you brought him home from the hospital. Maya's heart stopped. You've been watching me. I've been protecting you. Do you have any idea how dangerous it is to harbor a rogue werewolf? Kai Blackwood is wanted by his pack for treason, Maya. He's a killer who's been using you as cover. That's not true. Isn't it? Crawford pulled out another file, this one filled with police reports and missing person cases. Kai Blackwood, age 32, wanted in connection with 3 deaths in Wyoming before he came to Colorado. Sarah Martinez, age 28, found torn apart in the wilderness outside Jackson Hole. David Chen, age 45, a wildlife photographer who got too close to pack territory. Maria Rodriguez, age 31, a forest ranger who stumbled onto a pack gathering. Maya stared at the photos of the victims, her stomach churning with nausea and denial. No. Kai wouldn't, he's not a killer. He's a predator, Maya. It's his nature. Crawford was close enough now that Maya could smell that metallic scent more clearly, could see the way his pupils had dilated despite the bright fluorescent lighting. The only question is why he's kept you alive this long. Because he loves me. Crawford's laugh was like breaking glass. Love? Werewolves don't love, Maya. They mate, they breed, they dominate. Kai has been using you, manipulating your emotions to keep himself safe from his former pack. Maya shook her head, backing toward the door. You're wrong. I know, Kai, I know. You know nothing. Crawford's voice rose to a roar, and suddenly Maya could see his true nature reflected in his eyes. The pupils weren't just dilated, they were changing, elongating into something distinctly non-human. You've been blind to what's right in front of you, just like you've been blind to what you really are. Maya's hand found the door handle, but Crawford was faster. He slammed his palm against the door, trapping her in the room with him. Did you really think it was coincidence that you're so good with injured animals? That you can calm the most aggressive patients with just a touch? That you've always been drawn to the wilderness, always felt more at home in the forest than in civilization? I don't know what you're talking about. Your grandmother never told you the truth, did she? Never explained why your family was so special, why the women in your bloodline could see and hear things others couldn't. Crawford leaned closer, his breath hot against Maya's face. You're not entirely human, Maya. You never have been. Maya felt something shift inside her, a stirring in her blood that was both terrifying and exhilarating. That's impossible. Is it? Haven't you noticed the changes since Kai arrived? The enhanced senses, the increased strength, the dreams of running through the forest on 4 legs? Crawford's smile was predatory now, revealing canine teeth that were definitely not human. The dormant genes are awakening, triggered by prolonged contact with a full werewolf. You're becoming what you were always meant to be. Maya's world tilted sideways as the truth crashed over her. The strange symptoms she'd been experiencing, the way animals responded to her, Emma's uncanny abilities, it all made horrible sense. The research, she said suddenly. You've been using my files to track werewolves. Very good. Your documentation of attack patterns, migration routes, territorial disputes, it's been invaluable in my work. What work? Crawford stepped back, his human mask slipping to reveal something cold and calculating underneath. Extermination, Maya. Werewolves are an evolutionary dead end, a threat to human supremacy that needs to be eliminated. The Fenris Institute has been hunting them for over a century, and your research has given us the tools to finally succeed. Maya felt rage building in her chest, hot and primal and utterly inhuman. You've been using me to murder innocent people. Innocent? Crawford laughed. There's nothing innocent about creatures that can tear a human apart with their bare hands. Nothing innocent about monsters who seduce human women and corrupt their bloodlines. The rage exploded through Maya like wildfire. She felt her vision shift, colors becoming more vivid, details sharpening to impossible clarity. Her hands were changing, nails extending into claws, and she could smell Crawford's fear despite his bravado. Maya. Crawford's voice had gone careful, cautious. Control yourself. The transformation can be stopped if you don't give in to it. But Maya didn't want to stop it. For the first time in her life, she felt truly powerful, truly herself. The wolf blood that had been dormant in her veins for 31 years was finally awakening, and it was magnificent. You used me, she snarled, her voice carrying inhuman harmonics. You used my work to hunt down people like Kai, people like me. People like you don't exist. Crawford pulled a gun from his jacket, some kind of modified weapon that gleamed with silver bullets. You're an abomination, Maya. A corruption that needs to be cleansed. The gunshot was deafeningly loud in the enclosed space. Maya felt the bullet tear through her shoulder, spinning her around and sending her crashing into the conference table. Pain exploded through her system, but underneath it was something else, a healing warmth that was already beginning to close the wound. Fascinating, Crawford said, watching Maya struggle to her feet. The healing ability is even stronger than I expected. This will provide excellent data for the Institute. Maya looked down at her shoulder, where the bullet wound was already beginning to seal itself. Silver should have been lethal to someone with werewolf blood, but apparently her hybrid nature provided some protection. You're going to kill me anyway, she said, surprised by how calm her voice sounded. Aren't you? Eventually. But first, you're going to help me capture Kai Blackwood. He'll come for you, it's pack instinct to protect one's mate. When he does, we'll be ready. I'll never help you. You won't have a choice. Crawford pulled out a syringe filled with some kind of clear liquid. Suppression serum. It will block your transformation, make you helpless. Very effective on hybrids. He lunged forward with the syringe, but Maya's enhanced reflexes kicked in. She caught his wrist and twisted, hearing bones crack as Crawford screamed in pain. The syringe went flying, shattering against the far wall. You're making a mistake, Crawford gasped, cradling his broken wrist. The Institute has resources you can't imagine. They'll hunt you down, Maya. You and your precious werewolf and that psychic little niece of yours. Ice flooded Maya's veins. Emma? What do you know about Emma? Crawford's smile was pure malice. Did you think we wouldn't notice a child with her abilities? She's been on our radar since she was 5 years old. Such a shame, she would have made an excellent test subject. Maya's partial transformation completed itself in an instant. Her claws extended to their full length, her canine teeth sharpened to fangs, and her eyes blazed with inhuman fire. If you touch her, you'll what? You're still more human than Wolf, Maya. You don't have the killer instinct. Crawford was backing toward a second door Maya hadn't noticed before. But don't worry. When we're finished with our experiments, you won't have to worry about anything ever again. He slammed through the door and was gone, leaving Maya alone in the conference room with the evidence of his betrayal spread across the table. She could hear alarms beginning to sound throughout the hospital, could smell the fear and confusion of the staff as they tried to figure out what was happening. Maya looked down at her hands, still partially transformed, and felt a mixture of awe and terror. This was what she really was, not fully human, not fully wolf, but something in between. Something that Crawford and his institute considered an abomination to be destroyed. The sound of approaching footsteps made Maya force her transformation to reverse. By the time Dr. Chen burst through the door with 2 security guards, Maya was fully human again, standing over the scattered files with blood seeping through her torn shirt. Maya. Are you all right? We heard gunshots. Crawford, Maya said, her voice shaking with reaction. He's been working with some organization called the Fenris Institute. They've been using my research to hunt werewolves. Sarah's face went pale. Where is he now? Gone. But he'll be back. Maya looked around at the scattered evidence of Crawford's deception. Sarah, I need you to gather all of this. Everything, the files, the photos, the maps. And I need you to call the FBI. The FBI? This is bigger than just Crawford. The Fenris Institute, they're hunting people, murdering them. Someone needs to stop them. Sarah nodded, already moving to collect the files. Maya, what happened to your shoulder? You're bleeding. Maya looked down at her torn shirt, where the bullet wound was now nothing more than a faint pink line. It's nothing. Just a scratch. But even as she said it, Maya knew her life would never be the same. The dormant wolf blood in her veins had awakened, triggered by danger and the presence of others like her. She was becoming something new, something powerful. Something that Crawford and his institute would kill to possess. Maya was heading for her truck when she caught a familiar scent on the mountain air. Her newly awakened senses identified it immediately, pine and earth and that wild, masculine musk that belonged to only one person. Kai. She found him waiting by her truck, leaning against the driver's side door with his arms crossed over his chest. He looked like hell, his clothes were torn and blood-stained, there were fresh claw marks across his face and neck, and exhaustion radiated from every line of his body. But he was alive. The mating bond that had been stretched thin with distance suddenly snapped taut again, and Maya felt the relief nearly bring her to her knees. You're hurt, she said, moving toward him automatically. I'll heal. Kai's amber eyes tracked over her torn shirt and the faint scent of gunpowder that still clung to her skin. You've been in danger. Crawford. My veterinary partner. Maya stopped just out of arm's reach, suddenly uncertain. The note he'd left still burned in her memory, along with all the lies he'd told her. He's been using my research to hunt werewolves. Kai's jaw clenched. I know. That's why I came back. I thought you were leading the pack away from me. I was. I did. But when I felt your fear through the bond, when I realized you were in immediate danger, Kai's hands clenched into fists. Nothing could have kept me away. Maya wanted to run to him, to throw herself into his arms and forget about everything else. But she couldn't ignore the lies anymore, couldn't pretend that their relationship was built on honesty. Emma says you remember everything, she said quietly. That the amnesia was fake. Kai went very still. Emma's perceptive. She also says you were sent here to kill me. Maya. Is it true? The question came out harsher than Maya had intended, but she needed to know. Needed to hear him admit it. Kai closed his eyes, pain flickering across his features. When he opened them again, Maya saw nothing but truth in their amber depths. Yes. The simple word hit Maya like a physical blow. Even though she'd suspected, even though she'd heard it from Crawford, having Kai confirm it felt like betrayal all over again. You were going to murder me. I was ordered to eliminate a threat to pack security. You were documenting attack patterns that could have exposed our kind. Kai took a step toward her, his expression desperate. But Maya, from the moment I saw you, I knew I couldn't do it. You saved my life that night on the mountain road, risked everything to help a stranger. How could I hurt someone with that kind of courage, that kind of compassion? So you decided to seduce me instead? I decided to protect you. Kai's voice rose with emotion. I told the pack you were dead, that I'd completed the mission. I thought if I stayed close, I could make sure no one else was sent after you. Maya stared at him, trying to process the implications. You lied to your pack. For me. I fell in love with you. The first moment I saw you bleeding and determined to save me, I was lost. Kai moved closer, his amber eyes blazing with sincerity. Everything I told you about loving you, about wanting to spend my life with you, that was real, Maya. The only real thing in a lifetime of lies and duty. Maya felt her anger wavering, undermined by the bond between them that carried his emotions as clearly as her own. She could feel his love, his desperation, his bone-deep fear that she would reject him. But she could also feel the weight of his deception. You should have told me the truth. When? When would have been the right time to tell you I was sent to kill you? Kai's voice cracked with pain. After our first kiss? During our first night together? When you were falling in love with a man you thought had amnesia? I don't know, Maya admitted. But keeping it from me, lying about who you were. I was trying to protect you from a truth that would have destroyed us. The truth is destroying us anyway. Kai flinched as if she'd slapped him. Maya, please. I know I've made mistakes, but... Mistakes? Maya's own anger flared back to life. You lied to me about everything, Kai. Your name, your memory, your reason for being here. How am I supposed to trust anything you say now? Because you know me, Kai said desperately. Whatever else I've lied about, you know who I am. You've seen my soul, Maya. You know I would die before I let anyone hurt you. Maya looked into his amber eyes and saw the truth of his words reflected there. She did know him, in ways that went deeper than words or explanations. The mating bond had shown her his heart, his fierce protectiveness, his absolute devotion to her safety and happiness. But trust, once broken, wasn't easily repaired. I need time, she said finally. Time to process all of this, to figure out what's real and what's. The sharp ring of her cell phone cut through her words. Maya glanced at the caller ID and felt her blood turn to ice. Rachel, she answered quickly. What's wrong? Her sister's voice was high with panic, barely coherent through her tears. Maya, it's Emma. She's gone. She disappeared during a school field trip and... Slow down, Maya said, her enhanced hearing picking up background voices and chaos on Rachel's end. Where did this happen? The nature preserve outside Evergreen. They were doing some kind of wildlife study, and when the teachers did a head count, Emma was just gone. Maya, the police are here, they're organizing search parties, but... I'm on my way, Maya said, already moving toward her truck. But Kai caught her arm, his face pale with a fear that had nothing to do with his own safety. Maya, wait. Listen. That's when Maya heard it, another phone ringing, this one coming from her truck. She looked through the window and saw an unfamiliar cell phone sitting on her dashboard, its screen flashing with an incoming call. Maya unlocked the truck and answered the unknown phone with trembling hands. Dr. Blackwood, a cultured voice said, the same voice that had belonged to the white-marked wolf from the pasture attack. How nice to finally speak with you directly. Where's my niece? Safe. For now. She's quite a remarkable child, such unusual abilities for one so young. The Institute will be very interested in studying her. Maya's vision went red with rage. If you hurt her. That depends entirely on you, Doctor. You have something we want, and we have something you want. I believe humans call it a trade. What do you want? Kai Blackwood. Alive and unharmed. In exchange, you get the child back. Maya looked at Kai, who had gone deadly still beside her. He could obviously hear both sides of the conversation, and his face had taken on the expression of a man facing his own execution. How do I know you'll keep your word? You don't. But you know what will happen to the child if you refuse. The voice carried casual cruelty that made Maya's skin crawl. You have 6 hours to bring Kai to the coordinates I'm about to text you. Come alone, or the girl dies. Try any tricks, and the girl dies. Fail to show up, and the girl dies. Are we clear? Crystal. Excellent. Oh, and Dr. Blackwood? Don't bother trying to track this call. We're not amateurs. The line went dead, leaving Maya staring at the phone in horror. A moment later, it chimed with a text message containing GPS coordinates and a single line of text. Bring the werewolf, or the girl dies. Maya felt the world spin around her as the full scope of her situation became clear. Emma had been taken by creatures who wanted to trade her life for Kai's. The Fenris Institute was hunting them all. And somewhere out there, a 7-year-old girl was depending on Maya to save her. I have to go, Kai said quietly, his voice empty of all emotion. This is my fault, Maya. I brought this danger into your life, and now Emma is paying the price. Like hell you're going. Maya grabbed his arm, her claws partially extending with the force of her grip. They want to kill you, Kai. This is a trap. Of course it's a trap. But what choice do we have? Kai gently pried her fingers loose, his amber eyes soft with love and regret. I won't let an innocent child die because of my choices. We'll find another way. We'll call the police, the FBI. And tell them what? That werewolves have kidnapped your niece? Kai shook his head. Maya, there is no other way. I have to surrender myself. Then we go together. No. Kai's voice carried absolute authority. They want me, not you. If I give myself up, they'll let Emma go. You don't know that. I know that I can't live with myself if something happens to her because I was too cowardly to face the consequences of my actions. Kai cupped Maya's face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away tears she didn't realize she was shedding. I love you, Maya. More than my own life. That's why I have to do this. Maya stared up into his amber eyes and saw the finality there. Kai had already made his decision, was already preparing to sacrifice himself to save Emma. And Maya realized that she couldn't let him go alone. 6 hours, she said, looking at the GPS coordinates on the phone. That gives us time to plan. Maya. I'm not losing both of you, Maya said fiercely. Emma is my family, and you're my mate. I'll be damned if I let anyone take either of you away from me. Kai's expression shifted from resignation to something that might have been hope. What are you thinking? Maya looked at the coordinates again, her mind already working through possibilities. The location was deep in the wilderness, miles from the nearest road. Perfect for an ambush, but also perfect for other things. I'm thinking it's time to find out exactly what I inherited from my grandmother, Maya said, feeling the wolf blood singing in her veins. And I'm thinking that whoever took Emma has no idea what they're really dealing with. For the first time since the phone call, Kai smiled. My fierce mate. Damn right, Maya said, pocketing the phone. Now let's go get our girl back. But even as they climbed into the truck together, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something far more dangerous than a simple hostage exchange. The Fenris Institute had been hunting werewolves for over a century, and they'd chosen Emma specifically because of her abilities. Whatever was waiting for them in those coordinates, Maya had the terrible feeling that saving Emma was only the beginning. If you're enjoying this channel, don't forget to like the video, drop a comment to share your thoughts, and hit the subscribe button. Also, Turn on the notification bell so you'll be updated whenever more stories like this drop. Chapter 6. The GPS coordinates led them deep into the Arapaho National Forest, to a section of wilderness so remote that Maya's truck was the only vehicle for miles. As they followed increasingly narrow dirt roads through dense pine forest, Maya felt her newly awakened senses cataloging every detail: the scent of approaching rain, the distant sound of running water, the underlying musk that spoke of predators moving through the territory. "Stop here," Kai said when they were still half a mile from the coordinates. "We go on foot from this point." Maya parked the truck behind a screen of aspens and turned to study Kai's profile in the fading afternoon light. The past hour had been filled with tense planning, but underneath the strategy and preparation, the weight of his deception still hung between them like a wall of thorns. "Before we do this," Maya said quietly, "I need to know something." Kai met her gaze, his amber eyes steady despite the pain she could feel through their bond. "Ask me anything. If the situation were reversed, if someone had taken you and demanded I surrender myself, would you do it? Would you trade your life for mine?" Kai didn't hesitate. "Without question. Even knowing it was probably a trap. Even knowing you'd likely die anyway." "Maya, you're my mate. My heart. My soul. I would walk into hell itself if it meant keeping you safe." Kai reached out and touched her face with infinite gentleness. "The only reason I'm letting you come with me now is because I know Emma needs both of us to have any chance of survival." Maya leaned into his touch, feeling some of her anger dissolve. The mating bond made it impossible to doubt his sincerity, his absolute devotion to her well-being. Whatever lies he'd told about his past, his love for her was painfully real. "We're going to get her back," she said fiercely. "All of us are walking out of this alive." "My fierce mate," Kai murmured, echoing his earlier words. "I love your optimism. I just hope it's enough." They moved through the forest like shadows, Kai's supernatural stealth combining with Maya's enhanced senses to guide them toward the coordinates. The facility, when they finally found it, was nothing like what Maya had expected. Instead of some ramshackle cabin or temporary camp, a sophisticated compound had been carved into the mountainside. The main building was built into the rock face itself, its concrete walls and steel doors speaking of serious money and long-term planning. Security cameras swept the perimeter, and Maya could smell the ozone scent of electric fencing. "This isn't a pack operation," Kai whispered, his voice tight with recognition. "This is government level. Military." Maya studied the compound through binoculars, her blood running cold as she spotted familiar vehicles in the parking area. One of them was Crawford's silver BMW. "He's here," she breathed. "Crawford is part of this. Your veterinary partner? He's not just using my research, he's running the whole operation." Maya lowered the binoculars, pieces clicking into place in her mind. The pack that took Emma. They weren't acting independently. Crawford hired them. Kai's expression went deadly. "You're saying a human is orchestrating this?" "I'm saying Crawford is the real enemy. The pack, the Fenris Institute, they're all working for him." Maya felt her partial transformation beginning to stir, claws pricking at her fingertips as rage built in her chest. "He's been playing us all along." They circled the compound carefully, looking for weaknesses in the security. Maya's enhanced hearing picked up sounds from inside the building, machinery humming, voices speaking in low tones, and underneath it all, a sound that made her blood freeze. Whimpering. Pain. The soft cries of someone, in agony. "There are others here," Maya whispered. "Other prisoners." Kai's jaw clenched. "Pack members who've been captured for experimentation. We have to help them. Our priority is Emma." "Emma is one of them now," Maya interrupted. "Whatever Crawford is doing in there, she's part of it." They found their way in through a service entrance, Maya's veterinary knowledge of security systems combining with Kai's supernatural stealth to bypass the electronic locks. The interior of the facility was a nightmare of sterile corridors and laboratory equipment, the air thick with the scent of antiseptic and fear. Maya's enhanced senses guided them through the maze of passages, following Emma's scent trail deeper into the compound. The sounds of suffering grew louder as they descended, and Maya had to fight to keep her transformation under control. The laboratory they finally found was something out of a horror movie. Glass-walled cells lined both sides of a central corridor, each one containing a werewolf in various stages of experimentation. Some were fully transformed and sedated, their massive forms hooked to monitoring equipment. Others were caught between human and wolf forms, their partially shifted bodies writhing in obvious agony. At the far end of the corridor, Crawford stood before a large observation window, studying readouts on a computer terminal. Through the window, Maya could see Emma. Her 7-year-old niece was strapped to an examination table, electrodes attached to her temples and chest. Her eyes were closed, but Maya could see the rapid movement beneath her lids that spoke of nightmares or visions. Machines beeped steadily around her, monitoring her vital signs while some kind of drip fed an unknown substance into her small arm. Maya's vision went red with rage. Her transformation completed itself in an instant, her human form dissolving into something that was neither fully human nor fully wolf but perfectly designed for violence. "Crawford," she roared, her voice carrying inhuman harmonics that shattered glass beakers throughout the laboratory. Crawford spun around, his face lighting up with scientific fascination rather than fear when he saw Maya's transformed state. "Magnificent," he breathed. "The hybrid transformation is even more impressive than our models predicted." "Let her go," Maya snarled, advancing down the corridor with predatory grace. Behind her, she could feel Kai shifting into his own combat form, the air filling with the musk of angry werewolves. "I'm afraid that's impossible," Crawford said, pulling out what looked like a modified tranquilizer gun. "Emma is far too valuable to release." "Do you have any idea what she is, Maya? What she can do?" "She's a 7-year-old child. She's a psychic werewolf hybrid with the ability to communicate with and control other lycanthropes," Crawford corrected. "The first of her kind we've ever encountered. Her brain patterns are unlike anything we've ever recorded." Maya felt ice settle in her stomach. "What have you done to her?" "Enhanced her abilities. Amplified her natural gifts through a combination of genetic therapy and psychoactive compounds." Crawford's eyes gleamed with fanatic fervor. With the right conditioning, she could command an army of werewolves. Imagine the possibilities, supernatural soldiers completely under human control. "You're insane." "I'm a visionary. The werewolf population has been growing exponentially over the past century, Maya. Soon they'll outnumber humans in many regions. We need a way to control them, to ensure human supremacy." Crawford gestured to the imprisoned werewolves around them. "These creatures are the future of warfare, if we can master them." Kai stepped up beside Maya, his partial transformation making him a foot taller and twice as dangerous. "You're experimenting on children and calling it progress." "Sacrifices must be made for the greater good," Crawford said dismissively. "Besides, the child won't be harmed. She's far too valuable for that." "She's my family," Maya growled, taking another step forward. "Actually, she's my insurance policy." Crawford raised his tranquilizer gun, but instead of aiming it at Maya or Kai, he pointed it through the observation window at Emma. "One wrong move and I sedate her permanently. The experiments can continue with a brain-dead subject." Maya froze, her protective instincts warring with her need for violence. Through the mating bond, she could feel Kai's similar struggle, the desire to tear Crawford apart held in check by concern for Emma's safety. "What do you want?" Kai asked through gritted teeth. "Your cooperation. Both of you." Crawford moved to a control panel beside the observation window. "Maya, you're going to help me perfect the hybrid transformation process. Your unique biology makes you the ideal test subject." "And if I refuse?" "Then Emma dies, and I find another way to achieve my goals." Crawford's finger hovered over a red button on the control panel. "But I'd prefer to keep her alive. Children are so much more malleable than adults." Maya looked through the window at Emma's unconscious form and felt something break inside her chest. This monster had been using her research for over 2 years, building his facility with her unwitting help, planning this moment down to the smallest detail. "You've been manipulating me from the beginning," she said. From the moment you took over the veterinary practice. I made sure I was assigned as your partner, made sure you documented exactly the information I needed. Crawford smiled with genuine pride. You've been the perfect unwitting asset, Maya. Your research has allowed us to map werewolf territories across 3 states. The pack that attacked my livestock, you sent them. I hired them, yes. Local wolves looking to make some easy money by following orders. They had no idea they were walking into a trap. Crawford's expression grew cold. Though I must admit, I wasn't expecting Kai to survive the encounter. His protective instincts proved stronger than anticipated. Maya felt pieces clicking into place with horrible clarity. You knew Kai would come to protect me. You counted on it. Of course. The mating bond makes werewolves predictably stupid when their partners are threatened. Crawford glanced at Kai with scientific interest. Though I must say, your particular bond is unusually strong. Most werewolves would have fled by now rather than risk capture. Most werewolves aren't mated to hybrids, Kai said quietly. Ah, yes. The hybrid factor. Crawford turned back to Maya with renewed fascination. Your transformation is remarkable, stronger than pure werewolves, more controlled than new shifters. The combination of human intelligence and lupin instinct creates something entirely new. Maya felt her rage building again, her enhanced senses picking up the fear and pain radiating from the captured werewolves around them. These creatures had been tortured in the name of science, reduced to lab rats for Crawford's twisted experiments. How many, she asked. How many what? How many werewolves have you murdered in the name of research? Crawford consulted a tablet, his expression as casual as if he were checking inventory. 17 confirmed kills during capture operations. 23 deaths during experimentation. Though I prefer to think of them as learning opportunities. Maya's vision went white with fury. Her transformation pushed beyond anything she'd experienced before, her human consciousness merging completely with her wolf instincts. When she moved, it was with inhuman speed and deadly purpose. Crawford barely had time to scream before Maya was on him, her claws tearing the tranquilizer gun from his hands and sending it skittering across the floor. She drove him back against the observation window, her fangs inches from his throat. Maya, stop. Kai's voice cut through her bloodlust. Emma needs him alive to reverse whatever he's done to her. The reminder of her niece's condition was enough to pull Maya back from the edge. She held Crawford pinned against the window, her claws drawing thin lines of blood where they pressed against his neck. Reverse the procedure, she snarled. Now. Crawford's eyes were wide with fear, but his voice remained steady. I can't. The process is irreversible. Emma's brain chemistry has been permanently altered. You're lying. I'm being practical. The changes we've made will allow Emma to reach her full potential. She'll be able to control werewolves across vast distances, communicate telepathically with pack members, even force transformations in dormant hybrids. Crawford's fear was giving way to fanatic excitement again. She'll be the most powerful being on the planet. She'll be a 7-year-old girl who's been tortured by monsters, Maya corrected. She'll be the key to human survival in a world increasingly dominated by supernatural threats. That's when the alarm started. Red lights flashed throughout the laboratory as a klaxon sounded, the electronic voice of the facility's computer system announcing, security breach. Multiple hostiles detected. All personnel report to emergency stations. Maya felt Kai tense beside her, his enhanced senses focused on sounds she couldn't detect. The pack is here, he said grimly. The ones who took Emma. They're not happy about being betrayed. Impossible, Crawford said, but Maya could smell his sudden fear. They were paid to deliver the child and leave. Werewolves don't like being used any more than humans do, Kai said. And they definitely don't like having their payment cancelled by murder. The sound of gunfire echoed through the facility, followed by inhuman roars and the screams of human personnel. Maya realized that Crawford's security team was engaging the pack in what sounded like a running battle through the upper levels. We need to get Emma out of here, Maya said, releasing Crawford to move toward the observation window. The door is electronically locked, Crawford said, pulling out a remote control device. And I'm the only one with access. Maya spun back to face him, her claws extending. Open it. Not until you agree to my terms. Help me perfect the hybrid program, and I'll... His words were cut off by the sound of splintering wood from somewhere above them. The pack was getting closer, and Maya could hear the distinctive howl that meant they were hunting for specific prey. They were hunting for Crawford. You hired werewolves to kidnap a child and then tried to have them killed, Maya said, understanding flooding through her. They want your blood. Crawford's face had gone pale. The facility is secure. They can't. The lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a moment later, bathing the laboratory in hellish red illumination. In the sudden darkness, Maya heard the distinctive sound of claws on concrete, getting closer with each second. Open the door, Kai ordered, his voice carrying absolute authority. Now, or I let the pack have you. Crawford's hands shook as he worked the remote control, and Maya heard the electronic locks on Emma's room disengaging. She was moving before the door finished opening, her enhanced senses guiding her to Emma's side in the dim light. Her niece was unconscious but breathing, her small body dwarfed by the examination table and monitoring equipment. Maya began disconnecting the electrodes and 4 lines, her veterinary training helping her identify which tubes and wires were critical. Emma, she whispered, stroking her niece's pale forehead. I'm here, sweetheart. Aunt Maya's here. Emma's eyes fluttered open, but when she looked at Maya, there was something different about her gaze. Something older, more aware, more powerful than any 7-year-old should possess. Aunt Maya, Emma said, her voice carrying strange harmonics that made the glass in the room vibrate. I can hear them all. All the wolves. They're so angry, so hurt. It's okay, baby. We're going to get you out of here. The bad man gave me medicine that made the voices louder, Emma continued, sitting up on the examination table with movements that seemed too coordinated for someone who'd been unconscious moments before. I can hear Uncle Kai's pack, and the angry ones upstairs, and others coming from far away. Maya felt ice settle in her stomach. Others? Emma tilted her head, listening to sounds only she could hear. The medicine made me call to them. I didn't mean to, but it made my voice so loud that every wolf for miles heard me crying for help. The implications hit Maya like a physical blow. Crawford's experiments hadn't just enhanced Emma's natural abilities, they'd turned her into a supernatural beacon that was calling werewolves from across the region. How many? Maya asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. Lots, Emma said simply. They're all coming to help me. But Aunt Maya, some of them aren't nice wolves. Some of them are hungry and angry and they want to hurt people. The sound of more gunfire echoed through the facility, closer now. Maya could hear human screams mixing with inhuman roars, and the acrid scent of gunpowder was being overwhelmed by the musk of multiple werewolf packs. We need to leave, Kai said from the doorway, his amber eyes reflecting the emergency lighting. Now, before this becomes a war zone. Maya scooped Emma into her arms, surprised by how light her niece felt. The child wrapped her small arms around Maya's neck and whispered something that made Maya's blood freeze. It's too late, Aunt Maya. I already called them all. And now I can't make the voices stop. That's when Crawford made his mistake. In the chaos and darkness, with the sound of approaching werewolves growing louder, he pulled out a backup weapon, a syringe filled with some kind of bright blue serum. She's too dangerous, he said, lunging toward Emma with the syringe raised. I have to complete the process before. Maya's transformation erupted with explosive force. Her hybrid nature, amplified by protective rage and the proximity to other supernatural creatures, pushed her beyond anything she'd experienced before. She was faster than Kai, stronger than the pack members upstairs, more lethal than anything Crawford could have imagined. She caught his wrist before the syringe could reach Emma, her claws sinking deep enough to scrape bone. Crawford screamed and dropped the weapon, which shattered on the concrete floor and sent blue serum spreading in a toxic puddle. But the damage was already done. A single drop of the serum had splashed onto Emma's arm, and the child's reaction was immediate and terrifying. Her eyes rolled back in her head, revealing only white, and her small body began to convulse in Maya's arms. Emma. Maya tried to hold her niece steady, but the convulsions were too violent. What was in that syringe? Crawford was cradling his mangled wrist, his face gray with pain and fear. Amplification serum. It was supposed to be administered gradually over several days, not all at once. Emma's convulsions stopped abruptly, leaving her small body terrifyingly still in Maya's arms. For a moment, Maya thought the worst had happened, that Crawford's poison had killed her niece. Then Emma opened her eyes. They were glowing silver, bright as moonlight, beautiful and terrible and completely inhuman. When she spoke, her voice carried such power that every piece of glass in the laboratory shattered simultaneously. I can see them all, Emma said, her child's voice layered with harmonics that spoke of ancient power and supernatural authority. Every wolf in the mountains. Every pack, every lone hunter, every hidden hybrid. Maya felt the psychic pressure building around them, a supernatural force that made the air itself feel thick and electric. Through the mating bond, she could sense Kai's amazement and terror as he witnessed Emma's transformation. Emma, sweetheart, you need to calm down. They hurt the wolves, Emma said, her silver eyes fixed on Crawford with an intensity that made him whimper. They cut them and poisoned them and made them suffer. The voices are all screaming for justice. The pressure in the air reached a breaking point. Emma tilted her head back and released a sound that was part scream, part howl, part psychic command that bypassed the ears entirely and went straight to the brain. Every werewolf within 50 miles heard that call. Maya felt it herself, the irresistible compulsion to answer, to come running, to offer aid and protection to the source of that supernatural summons. Through the facility's walls, she could hear the pack members who were already inside responding with howls of their own, their voices joining Emma's call and amplifying it further. What has she done? Crawford whispered, staring at Emma in horror. Emma looked down at him with those glowing silver eyes, and when she smiled, Maya saw fangs that definitely didn't belong in a 7-year-old's mouth. I called them home, Emma said simply. All of them. Every wolf who can hear my voice is coming to protect their pack sister. Maya stared at her transformed niece and realized that Crawford's experiments had created something unprecedented, a child with the power to command every werewolf in existence. Emma wasn't just psychic anymore. She was something new, something dangerous, something that could reshape the supernatural world with a thought. And judging by the howls that were now echoing from every direction as dozens of werewolf packs converged on the facility, that reshaping was about to begin. We need to get out of here, Kai said urgently. Before Emma's call brings down the entire werewolf population of Colorado. But as Maya looked into her niece's glowing silver eyes, she realized it might already be too late. The child in her arms was no longer entirely human, no longer entirely controllable. Emma had become something that Crawford's wildest dreams couldn't have imagined, and something that his worst nightmares had never contemplated. The real question was whether Maya could help her niece control these new abilities before they destroyed them all. If you're enjoying this channel, don't forget to like the video, drop a comment to share your thoughts, and hit the subscribe button. Also, turn on the notification bell so you'll be updated whenever more stories like this drop. Chapter 7. The first pack arrived within minutes of Emma's psychic call, their massive forms pouring through the facility's shattered windows like a supernatural flood. Maya pressed herself against the laboratory wall, holding Emma protectively as chaos erupted around them. These weren't the organized, calculating werewolves she'd encountered before. Emma's call had reached every lycanthrope within 50 miles, rogues, pack hunters, lone wolves who'd been living on the fringes of civilization. Some came to protect the child whose voice had touched their minds. Others came hunting, drawn by the scent of blood and violence. And some came under Emma's involuntary control, their own will subsumed by the psychic power radiating from her glowing silver eyes. I can't stop it, Emma whispered against Maya's shoulder, her small body trembling with the effort of containing forces she didn't understand. They're all listening to me, but I don't know what I'm telling them to do. Maya watched in horrified fascination as 3 wolves who'd been fighting Crawford's security team suddenly stopped mid-attack, their heads turning toward Emma's location with mechanical precision. Their eyes had taken on the same silver glow as Emma's, and they moved with the eerie coordination of marionettes. "Emma, you need to focus," Maya said urgently, her own enhanced senses tracking the chaos spreading through the facility. "Think about what you want them to do. Direct them. I don't want to control anyone." Emma's voice carried such anguish that several wolves throughout the building whined in response. "It hurts them. I can feel it hurting them." Maya's heart clenched at her niece's distress, but there was no time for gentle comfort. The facility was turning into a war zone, with Crawford's remaining security forces fighting desperately against an overwhelming supernatural invasion. "Where's Crawford?" Kai demanded, his partially transformed state making him a lethal shadow in the emergency lighting. His amber eyes tracked the movements of approaching wolves, distinguishing between threats and allies with predatory precision. "He was right here," Maya began, then stopped as she caught sight of something that made her blood freeze. Crawford hadn't fled. Instead, he was standing in the far corner of the laboratory, holding a syringe filled with the same bright blue serum he'd tried to inject into Emma. But this time, he was pressing the needle against his own neck. "If I can't control the future," Crawford said, his voice carrying across the chaos with fanatic determination, "then I'll become it." "No." Maya lunged toward him, but she was too late. Crawford plunged the syringe into his carotid artery, injecting the concentrated werewolf enhancement serum directly into his bloodstream. The transformation that followed was unlike anything Maya had ever witnessed, violent, uncontrolled, and absolutely horrifying. Crawford's human form seemed to explode outward, his bones cracking and reshaping themselves with audible snaps. His skin rippled and tore as muscle mass doubled, then tripled, creating something that was neither human nor wolf but a nightmare amalgamation of both. When the change was complete, he stood nearly 8 feet tall, his elongated limbs ending in claws the size of kitchen knives. But worst of all were his eyes, still human in their intelligence and malice, but glowing with the same silver light as Emma's. The serum hadn't just transformed him physically, it had connected him to Emma's psychic network. "Now I understand," Crawford said, his voice a guttural rasp that carried inhuman harmonics. "The power isn't in controlling werewolves, it's in becoming something better than both human and wolf." Kai stepped protectively in front of Maya and Emma, his own transformation completing itself in response to the threat. "You're an abomination." "I'm evolution," Crawford corrected, flexing claws that gleamed like surgical steel. "And you're extinct." The battle that followed was primal and brutal, two apex predators fighting for dominance in the confined space of the laboratory. Crawford's enhanced form gave him size and reach advantages, but Kai had experience and the fighting instincts of a natural-born werewolf. Maya found herself caught between protecting Emma and helping Kai, her hybrid nature responding to the violence with its own transformation. She felt her human consciousness merge with wolf instincts, creating something that was uniquely her own, not the controlled shift of a natural werewolf, but the explosive power of someone protecting everything she loved. Around them, the facility continued to fill with werewolves responding to Emma's call. Maya could hear the sounds of combat from multiple levels, gunfire, roars, the screams of Crawford's personnel as they were overwhelmed by supernatural forces they'd never been trained to fight. "The building's on fire," Emma said suddenly, her silver eyes reflecting knowledge that came from her psychic connection to the wolves throughout the facility. "The fighting knocked over some chemicals in the upper lab. It's spreading fast." Maya could smell the smoke now, acrid and toxic as it mixed with the sense of battle. They had minutes before the entire compound became a death trap. "Emma, can you control the wolves that are here? Can you make them help instead of just attacking?" Emma's small face scrunched with concentration, her silver eyes blazing brighter as she focused her abilities. "I can try. But Aunt Maya, the angry ones don't want to listen. They want to hurt everyone." "Then we deal with the angry ones ourselves," Maya said grimly, watching Kai and Crawford circle each other like gladiators. "Focus on the ones who want to help." Emma nodded and closed her eyes, her psychic voice reaching out to touch the minds of werewolves throughout the burning facility. Maya felt the change immediately, some of the chaotic violence outside the laboratory transformed into organized rescue efforts as Emma's controlled wolves began evacuating the imprisoned test subjects. But the improvement came at a cost. The effort of controlling so many minds simultaneously was draining Emma's strength at an alarming rate. Her small body was shaking with exhaustion, and Maya could see the silver glow in her eyes beginning to flicker. That's when Crawford made his move. While Kai was distracted by a falling piece of burning debris, Crawford launched himself across the laboratory with inhuman speed. His target wasn't Kai, it was Emma, vulnerable in Maya's arms as she struggled to maintain control over her expanding psychic network. Maya saw the attack coming and made a choice that would haunt her forever. She threw herself between Crawford's claws and Emma's small body, taking the full force of his strike across her chest and shoulder. Crawford's enhanced claws, sharpened to surgical precision by the serum, tore through her ribs like paper and found the soft organs beneath. Pain exploded through Maya's system, white-hot and devastating. She felt her lung collapse, felt blood filling her chest cavity, felt her hybrid healing trying desperately to repair damage that was too extensive to fix quickly. But she'd bought Emma the seconds she needed. Emma's eyes snapped open, blazing with silver fire that had nothing to do with psychic abilities and everything to do with pure, protective rage. Her voice, when she spoke, carried such power that every piece of equipment in the laboratory short-circuited simultaneously. "You hurt my Aunt Maya," Emma said, her child's voice layered with harmonics that spoke of ancient power and absolute authority. "Now you deal with me." The psychic assault that followed was unlike anything Crawford could have prepared for. Emma's enhanced abilities, amplified by emotional trauma and protective fury, reached into every corner of his transformed mind and twisted. Crawford screamed, a sound that was part human agony, part animal rage, as Emma's power invaded his consciousness. The werewolves he'd tortured and experimented on, the ones still trapped in the facility's cells, suddenly found their caged doors opening as Emma's psychic commands overrode the electronic locks. They came for Crawford with single-minded purpose, their eyes glowing with Emma's silver light as they obeyed her unspoken command for justice. Maya watched through a haze of pain and blood loss as Crawford was overwhelmed by his own victims. There was a horrible poetry to it, the mad scientist destroyed by the very creatures he'd sought to control. But the victory came at a terrible price. Maya could feel her life flowing out through the wounds in her chest, could feel her hybrid healing failing to keep pace with the damage. The mating bond that connected her to Kai was flickering like a candle in high wind, and she knew he could feel her dying. "Maya." Kai's anguished cry cut through the chaos as he abandoned his own fight to reach her side. His hands pressed against her wounds, trying to stem the bleeding, but they both knew it was too late. "Take care of Emma," Maya whispered, her voice barely audible over the sounds of Crawford's final battle. "She's going to need help learning to control her abilities." "You're going to help her yourself," Kai said fiercely, his amber eyes blazing with denial. "You're not dying on me, Maya. I won't let you." Maya smiled up at him, tasting blood on her lips. "I love you, Kai. That's never going to change, no matter what happens." "Maya, no." But Maya's eyes were already closing, her breathing growing shallow as her hybrid nature finally succumbed to injuries that would have killed a normal human instantly. The mating bond that had connected her to Kai began to unravel, taking with it the supernatural strength that had sustained her through their final battle. Kai's howl of grief and rage shook the burning facility to its foundations, a sound of such primal anguish that every werewolf in the compound stopped fighting to acknowledge the death of an alpha's mate. Emma, her own psychic powers fluctuating wildly with emotional trauma, felt Maya's life force fading through their family bond. The 7-year-old child who had just commanded an army of werewolves looked down at her dying aunt and made a decision that would change everything. "No," Emma said simply, her silver eyes blazing with determination. "I won't let her go." Emma placed her small hands over Maya's wounds, and suddenly the laboratory filled with silver light so bright it was visible through the facility's walls. The psychic network that connected Emma to dozens of werewolves throughout the building suddenly inverted, drawing power instead of projecting it. Maya felt the healing energy flowing into her from every werewolf Emma was connected to, their supernatural vitality, their enhanced recovery abilities, their very life force being channeled through a 7-year-old hybrid who refused to accept the death of someone she loved. The sensation was indescribable. Maya felt her torn organs regenerating, felt her collapsed lung reinflating, felt the massive blood loss being reversed as her hybrid nature was supercharged by the collective power of an entire werewolf army. When the light faded, Maya was whole again, not just healed, but stronger than she'd ever been. The near-death experience had somehow completed her transformation, awakening abilities she'd never known she possessed. "Emma," she whispered, sitting up to gather her exhausted niece into her arms. "What did you do?" "I shared," Emma said simply, her silver eyes already beginning to fade back to their normal green. "Grandma Rose visited me in my dreams and taught me how. She said family always shares when someone needs help." Maya looked around the laboratory, realizing that the healing had affected more than just her. The imprisoned werewolves who'd been tortured and experimented on were standing in their broken cells, their wounds closing and their strength returning as Emma's power continued to flow through the psychic network. Crawford's monstrous form lay motionless in the center of the room, his imperfect transformation having finally collapsed under the stress of Emma's psychic assault. The mad scientist was dead, his dreams of werewolf super soldiers dying with him. "The facility's going to collapse," Kai said urgently, helping Maya to her feet. Around them, the sounds of groaning metal and spreading fire made it clear that the building's structural integrity was failing. "We need to evacuate everyone." Emma nodded, her young face serious with newfound responsibility. "I can guide them out. All of them. The good wolves will help carry the hurt ones." Maya watched in amazement as her 7-year-old niece coordinated the evacuation of dozens of werewolves through her psychic network. Emma's enhanced abilities, now stabilized and under her conscious control, allowed her to communicate with every lycanthrope in the facility simultaneously. The evacuation was swift and efficient, with the stronger werewolves carrying their injured pack mates to safety while Emma's psychic voice guided them through the smoke-filled corridors. By the time the first explosions began rocking the facility's lower levels, every living creature had been successfully evacuated. Maya stood in the forest clearing where the survivors had gathered, holding Emma close while Kai organized the rescued werewolves into temporary packs. The facility burned behind them, Crawford's life work being consumed by the flames along with the evidence of his crimes. "What happens now?" Maya asked, watching the mixed group of werewolves, former enemies united by their shared trauma and Emma's psychic influence. "Now we rebuild," Kai said, moving to stand beside her with his arm around her waist. "Crawford's network is broken, but there will be others. Other humans who see us as threats to be eliminated or weapons to be controlled. Then we'll stop them," Emma said with the absolute confidence that only children possessed. "All of us together. The family of wolves that chose each other instead of being born together." Maya looked down at her niece, no longer entirely human, no longer entirely innocent, but still fundamentally the loving child she'd always been. Emma's ordeal had transformed her into something unprecedented, but her core remained unchanged. "My fierce girls," Kai murmured, pulling them both close. "I love you both more than life itself." As dawn broke over the Colorado mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Maya realized that their story was far from over. Emma's abilities would attract attention, both good and bad. There would be other threats, other challenges, other battles to fight. But for the first time since this supernatural journey had begun, Maya felt truly confident about their chances. They had each other, pack, family, mates bound by love and loyalty stronger than any blood tie. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The age of hiding was over. The age of fighting back had begun. And in the center of it all, a 7-year-old girl with silver eyes and the power to command armies smiled up at the adults who loved her, ready to help reshape a world that had tried to destroy her. The real war was just beginning. If you're enjoying this channel, don't forget to like the video, drop a comment to share your thoughts, and hit the subscribe button. Also, turn on the notification bell so you'll be updated whenever more stories like this drop. Chapter 8. 6 months later. The morning sun painted the Colorado mountains in shades of gold and amber as Maya stepped onto her back porch, cradling a steaming cup of coffee and breathing in the crisp autumn air. The familiar sounds of her property had changed over the past months, instead of just her chickens and the occasional deer, she could hear the soft conversations of the werewolves who now called her land home. The Blackwood Sanctuary, as it had come to be known, sprawled across 200 acres of pristine wilderness that Maya had purchased with the settlement money from the government. What had started as her small veterinary practice had transformed into something unprecedented, a place where humans and supernatural creatures could coexist openly, safely, and legally. Aunt Maya. Emma's voice rang across the yard, bright with excitement. The new family is here. Maya smiled as she watched her 7-year-old niece bound across the meadow, her dark hair streaming behind her and her green eyes sparkling with joy. The silver pendant at Emma's throat caught the morning light, a gift from the pack elders that helped her control the psychic abilities that had saved them all 6 months ago. Behind Emma came a small family of werewolves, parents and 2 young children who'd fled persecution in Montana and sought sanctuary in Colorado. Maya could see the exhaustion in their faces, the wariness that came from being hunted, but also the hope that brought them here. Dr. Blackwood, the male werewolf, said as he approached the porch. "I'm Marcus Webb. This is my mate Sarah and our children, Tyler and Luna. We heard about your sanctuary through the network." "Welcome," Maya said, setting down her coffee to greet them properly. "You're safe here. Let's get you settled in." The network Marcus mentioned was one of Emma's innovations, a psychic communication system that connected werewolf communities across the country. What had once been isolated packs living in fear were now part of a growing alliance that shared information, resources, and protection. Maya led the Webb family toward the main lodge, a beautiful log structure that served as both her home and the sanctuary's headquarters. Along the way, they passed other residents going about their morning routines, werewolves tending gardens, human volunteers preparing breakfast in the communal kitchen, and hybrid children playing together regardless of their heritage. "The cabins are just through those trees," Maya explained, pointing toward a cluster of comfortable homes hidden among the pines. "Each family gets their own space, but meals and activities are communal if you want to participate. Emma runs a school for the children 3 days a week, and we have healing circles every evening." "Healing circles?" Sarah Webb asked, her hand unconsciously moving to a scar on her neck that spoke of recent violence. "Emma's idea," Maya said with pride. She discovered that her abilities work both ways. She can not only command werewolves but also help heal trauma, both physical and emotional. It's been remarkably effective for families who've experienced persecution. As they walked, Maya caught sight of Kai emerging from the woods with a patrol group. Her heart still did that little skip whenever she saw him, 6 months of living together having done nothing to diminish the electric attraction between them. If anything, their bond had grown stronger, deeper, more complex with time. Kai had embraced his role as alpha of their unconventional pack with natural authority, but his leadership style was unlike anything the werewolf world had seen before. Instead of ruling through dominance and fear, he led through consensus and protection, creating a community where strength came from unity rather than hierarchy. "Maya," he called, jogging over with that fluid grace that still made her pulse quicken. "We found signs of the federal team about 5 miles north. They'll probably be here within the hour." Maya nodded, unsurprised. The government visits had become routine since the revelation of Crawford's illegal experiments had forced a complete reevaluation of supernatural policy. What had once been a shadowy world of hunters and hidden creatures was now subject to federal oversight and protection. "I'll get ready for them," Maya said. "Marcus, Sarah, you might want to get settled quickly. Government visits can be intense, but they're on our side now." The transformation of human supernatural relations hadn't happened overnight. Crawford's death and the exposure of his network had triggered a massive investigation that revealed decades of illegal experimentation, assassination, and cover-ups. Public opinion had swung dramatically when footage of Crawford's facility, and the tortured werewolves found there, had been leaked to the media. Now, instead of being hunted, werewolves were protected under the Supernatural Persons Protection Act. Maya's sanctuary was one of 12 facilities across the country that served as safe havens, research centers, and diplomatic outposts between the human and werewolf communities. An hour later, Maya found herself sitting across from Agent Jennifer Morrison of the Department of Supernatural Affairs, reviewing monthly reports in her office. The federal agent was a sharp woman in her 40s who'd become something of a friend over the past months. The integration statistics are impressive, Agent Morrison said, consulting her tablet. Crime rates in werewolf communities are down 40% since the accords were signed. Interspecies marriages are up 300%. And the sanctuary program has a 97% success rate in preventing persecution incidents. It helps that we're not hiding anymore, Maya said. Fear breeds violence. Understanding breeds cooperation. Speaking of understanding, how is Emma adjusting to her role as official liaison? Maya glanced out the window, where Emma was leading a group of human and werewolf children in some kind of nature lesson. Her niece had grown into her abilities with remarkable grace, becoming the bridge between species that the world desperately needed. She's thriving. The monthly visits to Washington are challenging for a 7-year-old, but she loves feeling useful. And having her input has helped the Senate's Supernatural Committee avoid several major policy mistakes. The president is considering expanding her role, Agent Morrison said carefully. There's talk of creating a permanent position, Ambassador for Supernatural Youth Affairs. Maya felt a familiar protective surge. Emma is still a child, Agent Morrison. Whatever role she plays in the future, her education and well-being come first. Of course. That's actually part of what we wanted to discuss with you. Agent Morrison leaned forward, her expression serious. The department wants to fund an expansion of your educational program. We're seeing more hybrid children every month, and they need specialized training to control their abilities. It was true. The revelation of the supernatural world had led to a wave of previously hidden hybrids coming forward, along with new relationships between humans and werewolves that were producing children with remarkable gifts. Maya's sanctuary had become a de facto school for these young people, with Emma serving as both student and teacher. I'd be open to discussing it, Maya said. But any expansion has to maintain our core principles: family unity, voluntary participation, and respect for individual choice. Understood. I'll have the proposal on your desk next week. After Agent Morrison left, Maya found herself walking through the sanctuary grounds, marveling at how much had changed since that stormy night when she'd found a wounded stranger on a mountain road. The veterinary clinic that had started it all was still there, but it had grown into a state-of-the-art medical facility that served both human and supernatural patients. She paused at the memorial garden that honored the werewolves who died in Crawford's experiments. Their names were carved into black granite stones arranged in a circle around a fountain, with Emma's favorite flowers planted throughout. It was a place of peace and remembrance, where visitors could reflect on the cost of ignorance and hatred. Penny for your thoughts. Kai's voice came from behind her, warm and familiar. Maya leaned back against his chest, feeling his arms circle her waist. Just thinking about how far we've come. Sometimes it feels like a dream. A good dream? The best dream. Maya turned in his arms, studying the face she'd come to love more with each passing day. Are you ready for tonight? Tonight was their official mating ceremony, not just the biological bond they'd shared for months, but a formal celebration witnessed by both their pack and human friends. It had taken this long to plan because they'd wanted to wait until the sanctuary was stable and their lives had found some semblance of normalcy. I've been ready since the night I met you, Kai said, leaning down to brush his lips against hers. Though I have to admit, I'm nervous about the speech. Maya laughed. You're an alpha werewolf who's testified before Congress and negotiated treaties with pack leaders across the continent. I think you can handle a wedding speech. Those were just politics. This is about telling the world how much I love you. Kai's amber eyes grew serious. That's much more terrifying. Well, you'd better figure it out, because our guests start arriving in 2 hours. The ceremony was to be held in the meadow behind the main lodge, under the light of the full moon that had become a symbol of their love story. Maya had spent weeks planning every detail with Emma's enthusiastic help, creating an event that honored both human and werewolf traditions. As evening approached, the sanctuary filled with guests, werewolf pack leaders from across the country, human government officials, scientists and researchers who'd become allies in the integration effort, and most importantly, family and friends who'd supported them through the darkest times. Rachel arrived with her new husband David, a kind man who'd embraced both Emma's supernatural abilities and the family's unusual circumstances. Maya's parents' graves had been moved to the sanctuary's cemetery, allowing them to be present in spirit for their daughter's wedding. Emma, resplendent in a white dress with silver trim, took her role as flower girl very seriously. She'd insisted on designing her own flowers, silver roses that she'd somehow convinced to bloom out of season through a combination of psychic influence and old-fashioned gardening. "Aunt Maya," Emma said as Maya was getting ready in her bedroom, "you look like a fairy tale princess." Maya smiled at her reflection in the full-length mirror. She'd chosen a simple but elegant dress of cream silk that moved like water when she walked, with sleeves of delicate lace that covered the faint scars from her battle with Crawford. Her grandmother's pearls completed the ensemble, a connection to the past that honored the women who'd come before her. "Do you think Uncle Kai will like it?" Maya asked, though she could feel his approval through their bond. "He's been pacing in the lodge for an hour," Emma said with the knowing smile of a child who'd become wise beyond her years. "I think he'd love you in a potato sack." "Emma Sinclair, where did you learn to talk like that?" "From watching you and Uncle Kai make googly eyes at each other for 6 months," Emma said matter-of-factly, making Maya laugh despite her nerves. The ceremony itself was perfect in its simplicity. Maya walked down an aisle lined with pack members in their human forms, their eyes glowing with the supernatural light that marked their dual nature. At the altar, a natural stone formation decorated with Emma's silver roses, Kai waited in a black suit that emphasized his predatory grace. The officiant was Dr. Sarah Chen, who'd become ordained specifically for this ceremony after declaring that she wasn't about to let anyone else marry her favorite colleagues. The vows Maya and Kai had written themselves were a blend of human promises and werewolf bonding rituals, creating something entirely new. "I take you as my mate," Kai said, his voice carrying across the meadow with perfect clarity, "not just for this lifetime, but for all the lifetimes our souls may share. I promise to protect you, to cherish you, to stand beside you as we build a world where love transcends species and understanding conquers fear." "I take you as my mate," Maya responded, her heart full to overflowing, "not because fate brought us together, but because we choose each other every day. I promise to love all of you, human and wolf, alpha and partner, the man who saved my life and the one who gave me a future I never knew I wanted." When they kissed to seal their bond, the assembled werewolves threw back their heads and howled their approval, the sound echoing off the mountains like a supernatural symphony. Emma, standing beside them with her flower basket, beamed with such pure joy that several guests had to wipe away tears. The reception was a celebration that blended the best of both worlds, elegant human dining with the communal warmth of pack gatherings. Emma had convinced several werewolf children to perform traditional dances, while a human string quartet provided music that had couples of all species swaying together under the stars. Maya found herself pulled aside repeatedly by guests wanting to congratulate her, share their own integration stories, or simply express gratitude for what the sanctuary had meant to their families. Each conversation reinforced how much their work mattered, how many lives had been changed by the simple act of choosing love over fear. "You've created something extraordinary here," Agent Morrison said during one such conversation. "The sanctuary program is being studied worldwide as a model for supernatural integration. You should be proud." "It wasn't just me," Maya said, watching Kai dance with Emma while a circle of children, human and hybrid alike, clapped along. This was built by everyone who believed that different didn't have to mean dangerous. As the evening wound down and guests began to drift toward their cabins or vehicles, Maya found herself alone with Kai and Emma on the lodge's back porch. The 7-year-old was curled up in Kai's lap, fighting sleep despite the excitement of the day. "Thank you," Emma said drowsily, "for giving me a real family." Maya's throat tightened with emotion. "Sweetheart, you've always had a real family." "I know. But now it's complete." Emma's green eyes, so much older and wiser than they should have been, looked up at Maya with perfect love. "Now we all belong together." After they'd tucked Emma into bed, she'd insisted on staying at the lodge for the wedding night. Maya and Kai walked hand in hand to their own cabin deep in the woods. The structure was small but perfect, with a stone fireplace, walls lined with books, and windows that looked out into the heart of the forest. "So," Kai said as they settled onto the couch in front of the fire, "how does it feel to be Mrs. Blackwood?" Like coming home, Maya said honestly. Like finding the missing piece of myself I didn't know was lost. They made love that night with a tenderness that spoke of new beginnings and eternal promises, their bond deepening in ways that had nothing to do with supernatural connections and everything to do with two hearts choosing to become one. Afterward, as they lay entwined in their bed, Maya pressed her hand to her still flat stomach and smiled at the secret she'd been keeping for weeks. Kai, she whispered into the darkness. How do you feel about the pack getting a little bigger? She felt him go still beneath her, his enhanced senses no doubt picking up the subtle changes in her scent that had been driving him crazy for days. Maya, he breathed, his hand covering hers. Are you? About 6 weeks along, according to my calculations. Maya lifted her head to study his face in the moonlight streaming through their window. Are you happy? Kai's answer was a kiss that spoke of joy too deep for words, followed by whispered endearments in the ancient language of his people. When he finally found his voice, it was rough with emotion. I love you, he said simply. I love our family, our life, our future. I love everything we've built together. Even the chaos? The government meetings and the political negotiations and the reporters who keep trying to interview Emma? Especially the chaos, Kai said with a laugh. Though I have a feeling it's about to get much more interesting. As if summoned by their conversation, a chorus of howls rose from the forest around their cabin, pack members celebrating the new life that would soon join their family. Maya felt the baby respond to the sound with a tiny flutter of movement, as if already recognizing the voices of its extended pack. Our child is going to grow up in a world where humans and werewolves work together, Maya marveled. Where being different is celebrated instead of feared. Where love really can conquer anything. Our child is going to grow up knowing that family isn't about blood or species, Kai corrected. It's about the people who choose to love and protect each other, no matter what. Maya settled back against his chest, listening to the sounds of their pack, their sanctuary, their home. 6 months ago, she'd been a lonely veterinarian living in isolation, convinced that her quiet life was all she needed or wanted. Then a storm had brought her a stranger bleeding on a mountain road, and that stranger had brought her home to a world she never knew existed. Now, with Kai's arms around her and their child growing beneath her heart, with Emma safe and happy and Emma's psychic voice connecting their pack family across the continent, Maya knew that every choice, every risk, every fight, every moment of fear, had been worth it. The age of hiding was over. The age of integration had begun. And at the center of it all, love had triumphed over everything that had tried to destroy it. In the distance, a new howl joined the chorus, young and strong and full of promise. Maya smiled as she recognized it. One of the teenage hybrids had finally achieved his first full transformation, guided by Emma's patient teaching and the pack's unwavering support. Another success story. Another life saved. Another reason to believe that the future they were building would be brighter than the past they'd left behind. As Maya drifted towards sleep in her mate's arms, she felt their child move again, a tiny kick that seemed to say, I'm here, I'm strong, and I'm ready to be part of this amazing family you've created. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new lives to protect and heal. But tonight, under the full moon that had witnessed their vows, Maya Blackwood was exactly where she belonged. Home. Family. Forever. The storm that had changed everything was long over. The new moon was rising. And their story, the story of love conquering fear, of family transcending species, of hope building bridges across impossible divides, was just beginning. I know you enjoyed this video. Please support this channel by leaving a like, a comment, and don't forget to share the video to friends. Do well to subscribe to the channel so you can get more stories like this.